Hello, welcome to Aetheryte Radio, Gamerscape's Final Fantasy XIV podcast. I'm Xenedra. I always want to say Fusion X, because that's how the thing goes. And today, my friends Aldianaux and Rook are joining me, as well as two guests, Sharply Dressed Man and Rina. I forgot to ask you if that's what you want to be called. Is that what you want to be called?
You can call me Sharp.
Sharp.
This means a lot of syllables.
Yeah.
Sharply Dressed Man is my father's name, so please feel free to call me Sharp.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sharp and Rina. And they're joining us today to talk about caster things. For those of you who've joined us before, and in the kind of almost distant past at this point, we were doing a series of little shows about the role quests from Shadowbringers. And our last guy, aside from the one after you do all of them, is the caster DPS role quest. So we're going to give that one the attention it deserves today.
It's a good one.
It is.
Yes.
I'm excited to get to this one, yeah.
But first, Heaven's Turn. It came here. We had a good time, I guess. I had a good time. I don't know about you guys. And it's gone now. And, you know, it's been 4 weeks since we've been here. How's everyone been? Do anything amazing?
Gosh, it's been a whirlwind. The absolute silence is, I think, everybody thinks back on the whirlwind that was the past month or so.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. I mean, we had a great holiday. Lots of travel, lots of stuff going on, but it's so good to be back. I don't know about everyone else. Getting back to that regular routine and playing the games you love again is just, it's so good.
I was suffering because Monster Hunter Iceborne for PC came out while I was on vacation. And I'm like, I need to get home to play this.
I am tired of seeing people I love. Please let me return to Monster Hunter.
But honestly, that was me all Christmas. So
yeah.
Same.
I had a very short Christmas and a very long New Year's.
Yeah.
My New Year's was like 2 weeks long. My parents live about an hour away, and my husband's mom lives like 20 minutes away. So, and they like each other. Yes. So for Christmas, everybody came to my house. I have to leave my house. They bring food.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. And
I mean,
we have one Christmas. One and done, out the door. See ya in a month or so, right? It's excellent.
And
for New Year's,
New Year's
Charles
was 2
visited
weeks.
me.
Yeah, because I was there. I like New Year's. New Year's, I always go home for New Year's. I don't go home for Christmas. That says a lot about me, probably, but that's okay.
I don't know what you're referring to.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. We had New Year's, and then we went to MagFest.
Which is a great convention.
Yeah.
you guys were at MagFest?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Oh shoot! Hi, yeah, I was there too. Sorry, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, MagFest
It's a
is
small
really great
world.
for anybody who lives around DC or doesn't. It's music and gaming convention. That's literally what it means, MAG. And they have a lot of stuff there. And they have a bunch of rooms set up for people who want to go and jam. They're just called jam rooms. I think they actually have some instruments in there, which is
Jam Space. Jam Space usually provides like staff that will actually walk people through using the instruments. I believe, because I think some of the musicians from my orchestra actually participate with them. So
that's awesome.
I was going to ask Rina. So for anybody who doesn't know, Rina actually is really instrumental. No instrument pun intended, but there it is. Is really instrumental with an orchestra group that performs a lot of different covers of like Final Fantasy music and gaming music. And I was curious, if I had no idea MagFest was so musical, did your group perform there? Did your orchestra perform?
So it was the winter before I was able to join. WM actually headlined a couple years ago, or at least they were on main stage. Really well received performance. I think over 2,000 plus attendees.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so they were there for that. But no, we didn't perform this year.
But anywhere you go, there's just music everywhere. It's really great.
Yeah.
Music. There's a giant arcade.
Yes. You know that high school gym you had that was just big unnecessarily? Fill it full of free arcade machines.
Yes.
Super fun. There's a section that has indie games which I think is really underused. A lot of people don't go play the indie games, so
Mhm.
if you're
Yeah.
interested in what's up and coming, you'll probably be able to sit down immediately and play a game.
Yeah. And there were some really good ones.
Yeah, there was actually some nice stuff this year. Like I looked around last year, it was a lot of like weird homemade, almost electronic Rubik's cubes, which were still kind of cool. But this year, people
Interesting.
programmed
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
There was like a bullet hell fighting game, which was really interesting.
I
Not
loved
something
it.
that I could ever play because wow, I would just die immediately. But each of the different little fighters had their own set of bullet hell stuff that they just shot off of them, and you kind of fought that way. It was really interesting.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
a
it was really
area,
fun.
There's a console area, and
A
there's
LAN
couple of other
room.
like traveling indie-ish games. Like one of the ones we played, what's it called? Starship Horizons.
Yeah, Starship
Yes,
Horizons.
and
Yeah.
it's got, they actually have their setups that they carry around with them, and they're 5 big ass touch screens where you pretend that you're playing Star Trek basically.
Yeah. It's really fun.
That's so cool.
It's gonna be out on Steam like within the year, and it's so cool.
Yeah.
But yeah.
We're so glad. I mean, I'm so glad to be back with everybody and to be back with both of you and to hear more about it, because honestly, there are so many amazing conventions out. You don't know what a lot of them offer unless you hear from other
Right.
people.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there's a VR room too. I don't know
Yeah.
if I
Yeah.
had it last year. It's the first time I've actually had a VR headset on my head. And now I
Mhm.
want one, and I'm like, why did I do this?
Why did I do
I
this
got
to
to
myself?
play Beat Saber. It is so fun to beat up music with swords.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't say enough good things about MagFest. I think it's probably my
Seriously.
favorite convention I go to every year.
Mm-hmm.
The only problem with MagFest is so many people love it and go. There's no room in the National
Harbor.
Yeah, National Harbor.
Yeah.
No room in National Harbor anymore. All of the hotels book up in like 5 minutes, and that is
Yeah.
not hyperbole.
Yeah.
That is truth.
That is really
Yeah,
true.
we got really lucky because one of our friends saw that on the day that I guess a bunch of drops happened at the Gaylord,
Mhm.
we were able to get the rest of our group into Gaylord rooms.
Yeah.
But it's insane. Absolutely insane now.
Yeah.
We stayed across the river, which really wasn't that terrible. So for
Nah.
anybody who ends up across the river and going, oh, I don't want to go anymore because it's too far, it's really not.
Nah. Okay.
And the weather this year was good for it.
It was
So
very nice
Very-
this year.
It was warm. Yeah. We didn't get snowed in.
Yeah,
Oh my
usually it's
gosh.
freezing. And normally I'll cosplay there. And so this year I was like, I'm going to have costumes that have jackets. So I did Winter Zelda from Breath of the Wild.
Oh, nice.
And I did Anna from Frozen. She had that like, big cloak. So I'm like, I have coats. I'm totally set. And it was nice. Not too hot, not too cold. Very good.
Mhm.
Anyhow,
Yeah, we had a Fire Emblem group, but
Oh, awesome.
yeah. So it was good. MagFest was good.
That's awesome.
Go to
Yeah.
MagFest if you can.
MagFest,
Please,
if
please,
you're
please.
able.
Yeah.
Cons are great time, great people. And hey, we got FanFest coming up. We either this
Yes.
end of this year or beginning of next year, which I think everybody's excited about too.
Mm-hmm.
anyway, that was the first week.
Absolutely.
yeah.
The next week was just going to see friends with Charles a whole bunch.
Yep.
I think I saw
Every single person.
just about every friend that I've held on to since high school.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, there were
Great
sure-
friend tour.
Yeah, there were a few that got missed, but distance time.
Next time. Mm-hmm.
We'll see. And that's my week. 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe how long it's been. I mean, I know even Sharp and I raid together, and
Mhm.
there was this whole period of time where we'd been working on Ultimate a whole bunch, and then suddenly everybody's traveling for the holidays. And when we came back again, I had this moment where I went, "What is Final Fantasy?
What are all these
What?
buttons?
What do my
We
buttons
took an entire
do?"
month off, so I mean, I don't blame you.
It was so long. It was so long. Oh my gosh! But we're getting back into it now, which is
Mhm.
great. But yeah, it was a wild holiday, and hopefully everybody had a great time, including anybody who's listening.
Yes.
And you're getting
Mhm.
back into the swing of things.
It's okay if you forgot your buttons. So did everyone else. Just be nice when you're in that content and everyone's dying.
It's fine.
So we do have a fair amount of news, as you might
Yeah.
imagine, since we've not been here for like a month.
A month, so.
Yeah. We had an interesting bit of information about the live action Final Fantasy XIV series that's going on. For anybody who doesn't know, the same like production team that worked on Witcher is working on that. That doesn't mean the same director,
No.
the same,
Yeah.
but the same production team, same writers. No. But still, just that little bit of. I personally really like The Witcher. If you don't, I'm sorry. But
me too. No, I loved it. I think it was great. A great first season too, and tough adapting all those short stories. And there's been a lot of discussion about to what extent people were able to keep up with timelines and things like that. But personally, I totally got it and loved it, and I'm really actually excited that same team is going to be working on Final Fantasy.
Exactly.
Right.
Ooh.
I've seen one episode of The Witcher because as soon as I got back, it was work and more work. So.
Sharp and Rina, have you had a chance to watch it yet?
I need to get Netflix again.
I haven't seen The Witcher myself, but I mean, the production quality looks top notch, so I can't wait to see what they do with the Final Fantasy 14.
Yes. Gives me hope because the last live action thing we saw, Final Fantasy, excluding the Father of Light, since that doesn't really count as live action from that, was that terrible commercial.
Oh man, that commercial.
Anyway, this was a tweet. Hi, updates. The script is finished. Ooh, and we all love it. We are having some concept art done for it, and Sony TV are on the hunt for directors as we speak. Hope to have more for you soon. That was tweeted by at Jake Thornton. So if you want to keep an eye on those updates yourself, again, it was at Jake, Jake Thornton, Thornton.
Yep. Get the scoop.
Yes, then you can tell us next time they tweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be so interesting to see what they do with this because the lore of Final Fantasy XIV is huge. And we know that this is, at least from what we've heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's supposed to be kind of featuring the Scions. And presumably, I had heard that it was going to be kind of before our timeline here in the actual game itself. So it'll be really interesting to see what they do as they expand the lore and just how much of that, is canonical, how much of a hand the actual game team is going to have in it, which I'm also really curious about. We just don't know. It's all sort of ambiguous.
Right. I really want to know if, they're going to have Soken create some original music for the series or what. I would love to see that happen. Man.
Yes, please.
I'd die.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Please, yes, Soken, you can do every project and all the Final Fantasy music. You're fine.
So the news doesn't matter. That's all that matters.
That's all we want now.
We had our yearly Heaven Stern grading from Yoshi P, and he let us know that 5.x is on schedule. Hooray! And gave us a mysterious 4-line poem for the year. So, for what are warriors of light but earnest souls of good intent, resolved to do that which is right, regardless of consequence? I feel like this one's less mysterious than usual.
Right. I was about to say.
Yeah.
It's like, is this about Ardbert, not Ardbert, whoever that was, doing something that we don't like? Yeah, or about us.
Final Fantasy loves to pull the rug out from under you. Like, you thought you were doing the right thing, but guess what? You're the bad guy now.
Yeah, the fact that this almost seems more straightforward than usual makes me believe it's probably even more complex than we can anticipate. But who knows? There's so many tidbits and threads as we come into this next portion, and everybody's really curious what they're going to do after we get off of, this major revelation and all the craziness from Shadowbringers. How are we going to keep moving that forward and holding that momentum and building it? So we'll have to see.
Yes.
It's the big question. How are they going to improve? Like, how are they going to top themselves with this?
Exactly. Oh my goodness.
Don't know how.
I convinced a friend to get back into Final Fantasy, and they just got up to Shadowbringers, and they're like, "Oh, this is so good! I told you, everyone agrees."
Yeah, it's such. Obviously, today we're going to be talking a lot about it. So as always, heads up with these role quests and everything that Shadowbringers spoilers are going to happen, right? But it is pretty amazing, even seeing people now come into it, or even still seeing people who are so excited to watch playthroughs of it because. Sure, there are definitely some parts of Shadowbringers that are slower. There are whole zones that are a little bit slower. But by the time you actually start hitting that unveiling of the story and the magnitude of it in that later half, it's so amazing to see people experience it. And I can't wait to see how, they just keep expanding that. And as we go forward in this patch cycle, what we sort of get leading into our future expansion.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Moogle Treasure Trove's back. This is on our third one now?
I think so.
Moogle Treasure Trove?
Yeah, I think so.
Mhm.
Yeah.
One. Yep.
That sounds right.
Yeah. Monday, January 20th. So in,
2 days.
2 days.
Yeah. Yep.
From when this is released, maybe it's already out.
Yeah, if you listen to this later.
For those who don't know, that gives you the option to go back, tackle older content for special Moogle tomestones, which you can then turn in for rewards you may not have been able to acquire previously, especially alone, like primal mounts or certain orchestrion rolls. So for more details, check out the lodestone. It's right up there.
I am just so excited. I'm so excited because they added the Dunscaith set to this for the Heavensward 24-mans, and I just don't want to run Crystal Tower again.
Right.
I was actually raving about that yesterday.
I mean, it's like I love Crystal Tower, and even more so now because of Shadowbringers.
Yeah.
But I am so ready to do a different 24-man, And for me personally, I loved that set. I loved the Heavensward ones, and especially Dunscaith, aka Funscaith, which is to me still fun. Even though everybody else hates it, I love it. I love when the whole party wipes and you get blown off the platform. I cackle every time. It's so fun to me. So I'm really excited to see that kind of hopefully pop up more in our Alliance roulettes, and you get some decent rewards from it, which is great too.
Yes.
Look, I didn't take you for that kind of person.
It's always the sweet ones.
There is honestly such a satisfaction in it, though.
It's so fun. I mean, I think for me, it's just the fact that it's not always a reflection of the community, right? With 24-mans, and especially because you're trying to do tokens, the idea of being having a fight that's challenging the first week, but that you can then get through smoothly for repetitive weekly clears. I get that. But I loved Dunscaith because that was my first 24-man set when I came into the game. And that last portion, it is just chaos. And especially when it was new, it's so good. Every boss mechanic, the fact that it can wipe you, the fact that you get into the last fight with Diablos and you're getting these Vuln stacks and he's getting more and more damage as the fight goes on. And I remember as a healer, everybody is annihilated. You're the last one standing. You're using the limit break 3. It's like the angels descend from the heavens. It was just so memorable to me. And it's one of those things where I love the challenge of it. So the fact that even now there are still mechanics that can trip people up, I think is a testament to the fun design of those fights. But some people hate it. So that's okay too. But for me, I love it.
It's that the realization that everyone is going to die. You're resigned to it. You're like, you know what? That's fine. At least it's, we're all going to fall off. At least it's a spectacle. It's not just flash and we're dead.
You see people starting to jump off. Oh, we're at that point. Okay.
Oh, I
see. The special site for patch 5.2, Echoes of a Fallen Star, is live. The patch should be landing sometime in mid-February, so it's pretty much upon us, guys. Get ready. And it will bring us new main scenario quests, the next Eden Raid tier, a new dungeon, a new trial, new Beastman quests. Kick here, and I'm really excited. I love them. Guardian Restoration updates. So get ready to live there, I guess.
Yes.
Additions to crafting, gathering overhaul, ocean fishing, and new game plus updates, as well as a couple of sort of mystery things. Chronicles of a New Era, The Sorrow of Werlit.
Verlight.
There you go.
Let's do that. Verlight. The Chronicles of the Sorrow of Verlight. Tweet about this by our SE friends featured a picture of Gaius and his company, so maybe that will follow what the heck happened to them, because we don't know specifics for that. Or maybe how they're rebuilding after their terrible loss.
Yeah, and if anybody doesn't know, so this, because I even forgot when I was rereading this information, I went, the Sorrow of Verlet? What is it? And then I went, oh, right. So they told us that in addition to our sort of main story quests that we're also getting, almost like these role quests that we're going to be talking about today, like an additional side storyline. And that's going to be following here, Gaius and his company, presumably, and sort of some of the stuff that happened there. So it'll be fun to see what kind of story they bring into that. And I mean, if any of the content is tied to it, or, what's going to happen with it.
Like side stories. Think of it. Go ahead.
I was going to say, what I loved about listening to you list everything on patch 5.2, you basically touched every aspect of the game. They're adding something for almost everybody.
It's amazing, really. It's just insane, like what we get every patch still. Even though there's one less dungeon, that's fine. Whatever. There's so much other stuff happening.
That's not the stuff that, I mean, there are certain dungeons that I love, but I feel like in the end, like the forever long list of dungeons is not the thing that somebody's going to point to when they're like, my favorite content is,
Yeah, I don't think so.
I'm totally okay with less dungeons.
Yeah.
The last mystery item is resistance weapon quests, and I don't know what that is, but I'm assuming maybe it's relics.
Yeah,
that would make sense.
Yeah.
I mean, we know the relics are coming. We know that they're going to be tied to the Hrothgar race and their sort of homeland. So yeah, this is really for me what I think I'm most excited about from this patch. I don't know what everybody else is really looking forward to, but I'm curious to see how they're going to be building off of Eureka, because I think Eureka had a lot of promise even for its flaws. And what they do with this new kind of side content, this long grind, I think we could see something really, really cool. I'm hoping for something very different, but that builds on some of their successes.
So like different story, but same elemental resistance mechanics.
I see. How dare you? I just want my gun book. Give me my gun book, please. Make that the relic, please.
I just love the idea of like a summoner or scholar book that has a unique animation where when it's like you open it and then you just pull a gun out of it.
Here we go.
It's got like a cutout in the pages.
Yeah, that's a lot funnier than my idea of just having like the gun barrel built into the spine.
Yeah,
that would be fun too.
You turn the pages and it just shoots.
Yeah.
I want to shoot after my book thwap,
Yeah, you're right.
So for me, and I'm sure a lot of other players playing the game, this is going to be the first relic weapon that's been released that I'm actively playing the game for, that I can actually start day one. So I'm actually really excited about this, if this actually turns out to be a relic weapon questline.
Cool.
Sure, I didn't know about that. Were you not in the game when we got the first portion of Hagos?
No,
I
didn't play Final Fantasy XIV until Alphascape, so they had already pretty much was halfway through, I think, the second phase of Eureka by the time I really dug.
Sharp, that's bonkers to me. As somebody who knows you pretty well and raids with you, I mean, your knowledge of the game is so extensive. I mean, that goes to show, I think, your sort of technical mindset and just abilities to learn new systems. But that's so funny. I would have never thought that it was that recent, honestly.
You have so much waiting for you.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, what grind shall it be this time? I'm ready.
I really didn't mind Eureka. I caught up on a lot of Netflix, let me tell you.
We've talked about it before. I cannot play video games and watch Netflix. It was the worst content for me. Like I want to be engaged with the game. I cannot do like game and then something. I can't do it. I know it's weird. Fishing? I might be level 15. Maybe.
Oh boy.
I don't even do the content that I'm like, that's just, I can idle. I don't want my brain to idle. I want to constantly be doing something if I'm playing a game.
And that's why you play Summoner.
I can understand that.
That hurts. That hurts.
I mean,
that hurts.
True.
It wasn't.
Yeah, it's very true.
It was supposed to be a compliment.
I mean, it is, but I just didn't think about it.
Oh, Zen.
Oh, sorry. All right.
It's fine.
Our last little bit of news. Open your ears. This is important.
Yes.
As with any patch, we'll be getting Alligan tomestones, like the crunch, right? So get ready for Gosha to be matched in with Phantasmagoria as we get our brand new tome. The important thing to note with this update, though, is that any remaining Alligan tomestones of Mendacity and Genesis Mendacity and Genesis that players have will disappear. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Goodbye. Players currently carrying Aldianaux Tomestones of Mendacity and or Genesis should exchange them for Aldianaux Tomestones of Poetics, our basic buddies, by speaking with Ariana at Revenant's Tool prior to patch 5.2. Yep. Mendacity and Genesis.
They're going away.
That's the name of the episode now.
All caps, Mendacity and Genesis. They will go gooby.
Yes.
You're probably capped on Poetics if you're like me, friends. But yeah. There's always stuff to buy.
Yeah, and honestly, it's great to go back. I was just doing this recently because we got some time, right? So I've been working towards my Amaro mount because that's a good boy. And I need it. I need the good boy. And nothing has made me want to. It's kind of funny, Aldianaux, you talking about, it's not brain dead, but the kind of repetitive content that just wears on you. For me, that's always been just grinding levels. The idea of just, I am going to, for the next month, do nothing except for grind experience to get levels to cap all of my classes. So I've never done it because I usually just do the classes that I love. Right. So this is a great time, especially with that new incentive. Get everything to 80. You're going to get that Amaro mount. It gives you something really fun, meaningful with Shadowbringers. Plus, if you get them all leveled, then you can go back. You can go back to the centers, the hubs in the old portions of the game and look to see what you can spend Poetics on for classes and looks that you maybe never got in your Glamour catalog. Yep. I decked my monk out. I found some fun new things that I forgot that existed. And you can just clear that out and make way for a lot of this and get yourself some new stuff or get some gear for those alt classes, which is really great.
So maybe you
can
help me with
Glim Glams, folks.
Huh?
Yeah. I said get your Glim Glams, folks.
So maybe you can help me with this, Rook. How exactly do you keep your glamour thingamabob clear?
The commode.
Mine has maybe 3 slots left in it just because I was I really shouldn't fill this completely, right?
Zen, you've asked me a question, but the question has no answer because there is. I don't keep it well maintained is the answer. You have vastly overestimated my organizational abilities. I think it's great that they increased the cap, which has been really helpful. We had big flat. They increased the cap, which has been really helpful. Really, I think it's just about pruning those things out, right? I mean, there's so many places you can stash stuff with your retainers, with your saddlebag. Sometimes it's really good just to go through everything, all your tabs, all your stuff, and actually try the gear on your character and see what you think of it. Or if there's gear that you know is really easily reobtainable, just get rid of it. Just get it out of there. If there's that one thing that's been in your glamour wardrobe that you're like, maybe someday I'll make a rainbow sparkle fairy butterfly glam, but your character is actually like a punch everyone in the face kind of character with their aesthetic, and you're never going to do it, but you keep thinking maybe someday, just get rid of it. Get it later. It's what. Plus, there's
Marie
a lot
Kondo,
of stuff you can.
Everything.
Yes, Marie Kondo.
Does this spark joy?
Does this spark joy?
No, get rid of it. Gear to the game that's the same model as old stuff, but dyeable and craftable. I'm like, goodbye.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless there's a very specific color theme on it because certain things don't dye the same as the original pieces. Goodbye. I need you no longer. Thank you.
Farewell.
Yes. Thanks from Heaven's Word. Oh, I can just go and grind for that for 20 minutes. Yes, I can. That's fine.
My absolute dream, because I play so many MMOs, and basically all contemporary MMOs have done this. But 14 is struggling under the weight of this old system, and they're really doing the best they can, and they have a lot of spots, all things considered, for you to stash stuff. But I just want that glam unlock, repository. Just give me a list of all the glam. When I get it, it unlocks. It doesn't have to sit in a wardrobe. It doesn't have to... I can use it. I can use it on any character. The same thing with hairstyles. Please, just let me have all the hairstyles at the esthetician on all my characters.
Or Orchestrion rolls, too.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Those collectibles, some of which can take you a really long time. I wish that we just had them all in like a list. And I think it would be easier on the sort of storage side as well too, if it's just some sort of like list of things that it checks whether or not you've got it. I don't obviously program, so I don't know all the details, and I'm sure there's reasons they haven't just done that, but man, that would be so nice. That'd be so nice.
One day.
Yeah, give it like 5 years. We'll see.
Yeah, exactly. 7
last patch of the entire game of Final Fantasy XIV.
Oh, no.
Then they'll just give you all the glamour for free anyway.
Yeah.
You don't even need to get it. Just here, have everything.
Yeah, whatever. You good.
And we're not updating the game anymore. Bye. Yoshi P.
It's a dress-up simulator now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
At that
Is
point,
it
yeah.
not now though?
It's already a dress-up.
You're not wrong.
Yeah.
Already there.
All right, so that was our news. Now we're actually going to talk about the caster DPS role quest. Some people look excited. I'm excited now that you're excited. So the starting NPC for magical DPS role quest is Cerigg. That's what I'm going to call him. In the Crystarium, of course, at the Wandering Stairs, 11.2-15.2, just like all the rest of them.
Yeah.
If it's available to you, just go over to that little bar area and be like, there's the little plus sign, okay.
Yeah, I was like, or you could just type his name into gamerescape.com, and then right there you'll see the coordinates. I don't know.
That may or may not be the exact sentence on gamerescape.com. It's not. It's close. The first quest is called Hollow Pursuits. You strike up a conversation with the bounty hunter Cerigg, who reveals to you his plan to hunt down a Xenedra by the name of, I didn't look up this one, but I'm pretty sure it's Phronesis.
Yeah, I think so. Phronesis.
If you've been hanging out for these other ones, each of these virtues actually have a virtue associated with their name. This one's intelligence, and as a caster, that makes 100% sense.
Right.
Yes. He's one of the so-called cardinal virtues born from the remains of the fallen warriors of light. He is searching for a companion to aid him, not the virtue, but Cerigg. He's searching.
Yeah, Cerigg, the hunter.
And in turn, share the bounty, which in the end is really not a lot of gil. What kind of bounty is this for all that work?
Yeah, come on.
He suggests that you might be up to the task, and just like every other time you have to do one of these quests, he's like, go prove yourself. So you have to go out to Amarang and kill something.
Yeah, as per every single one.
You, of course, trounce this minor Xenedra that you were sent to dispatch, and he tells you about the nature of the threat of this other Xenedra, the real one, the cardinal virtue. As he tells it, the Xenedra does not confront... Or you have a thing to say? Say a thing.
I do. But mostly, and this can be cut out afterwards, chat is saying that they can barely hear you, if at all, Zen.
Me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So while you were getting into the narrative, I didn't want you to get too far into it and nobody heard it.
It's important. Hello, everyone. How are you today?
ASMR Xenedra edition.
Okay.
Today I'm going to be making ranged caster DPS sounds into my microphone.
Pew pew.
I adjusted it because Fusion's been streaming, and for some reason I'm super loud on his and he's super quiet on mine. So I'm gonna blame OBS. Let me just move this microphone closer to my face. Is that better, friends?
Chat, can you hear us?
Hello. I should probably keep talking. Welcome to Aetheryte Radio. This is where I talk louder. I hope. Can you hear me?
Still kind of low.
Okay.
We're seeing.
All right, time to go into the system settings.
Right. Well, you said caster DPS sounds, and I was like, is that just screeching? Because that's what I sound like.
Oh, yeah.
Check out my sound settings. All right.
Yeah. This is why I push to talk.
I don't need that one. I need the other one. New Windows is confusing. I'm an old woman.
I feel like the Black Mage soundscape is just one never-ending sound of explosions, and then maybe every now and then the sound of ice cubes being dropped on the floor, and then more explosions. If I had to just sort of...
That's exactly right.
Red Mage is just maniacal laughter because they know nobody can see past their animations.
That's
Right.
true. Maniacal
Oh,
laughter.
no.
Periodically, the "oops, I jumped into it and died"
Yeah.
sound.
Mhm.
and then like a swishy, swingy, sort of overly dramatic film version of, sword fighting that you can kind of hear in the distance.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit of like Inigo Montoya dialogue.
Right, of course.
Since we have a couple of summoners here, what would your summoner landscape be while Zen adjusts the microphone settings? What would that soundscape? The sound of pages flipping, maybe?
Yeah, table flipping earlier in the expansion.
Bahamut, please.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, will you
Lots of
just listen
screaming
to
at
me?
Bahamut.
Yeah, just listen to
I
me.
don't. We don't have time for a hug right now. Please just stay there and cast.
It's like the
Just
sound.
wants to hug you.
He just
Yeah,
wants to
it's true.
hug you. It's like the sound when you have like a cat or a pet and you hear
Yes.
it in the distance knocking everything off of a shelf. And you're like,
Bahamut,
what
no.
are you doing?
My static started calling Bahamut emotional support Bahamut when we were learning Hades, because I would pull him out right before the transition into the Asian shades.
Mhm.
So I was like, oh, I wasted this. And they were like, no, he's emotional support Bahamut. It's fine.
He's there to provide some moral support. Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. How about now, friends? I'm going to say some sentences so you can hear me, hopefully. I turned up my microphone. It's all louder
Yeah,
and
so-
stuff.
Sounds
I
like
want a
Maybe.
compilation of all your breakdowns today. Your
yes.
musical breakdowns. I
Yeah.
should say.
Oh
I
man,
know.
Fusion's not here. We should have done the musical
I
episode.
know. I have an idea for that on the horizon. Be prepared.
I'm
Oh
very
my.
excited and ready.
Okay, awesome.
Musical
Thank you,
episode.
everybody. Am I too loud
Yes,
now?
thank you.
All right.
Yeah,
Take
use that
2.
song.
Thank you, chat, for letting us know that Zen was so quiet that you wouldn't have been able to understand anything she was telling us. So-
All right. I don't want to start from the beginning. So,
That's fine.
welcome to
There's
Aetheryte.
a dude.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's Groundhog's Day.
I'm just gonna summarize this a whole bunch. Dude's
Yeah.
like, "Hey, you look strong. Go beat up something to prove to me that you are strong, and then we can do a quest together to kill a guy who used to be a warrior of light. His name's Phronesis now. It means intelligence, which is appropriate because he's a caster, and so are you.
I get it.
Are
Yes.
casters intelligent?
No.
Debatable.
I mean,
Yeah.
intelligent, yes. Wise,
I'm
perhaps
kidding.
not.
I'm kidding.
Oh yeah.
Let's see what those AoEs have to say. Yep. Let's see. And I left off at, as he tells it, bump, bump, the Sin Eater does not confront his foes directly because he's a caster, but rather wreaks havoc via something people are calling the Hollows, which are, just portals that suck you into another dimension forever.
No big deal.
Yeah, it's fine. No, they're super dangerous, which is the entire point of this quest line almost. Yep. So he hopes to figure out how to counteract that phenomenon so you can get at this Sin Eater who's basically just been hiding behind void portals.
Mm-hmm.
As I've said with almost all of these, I guess you got to start somewhere, and I guess you have to start a formula, but can we please maybe not with the formula?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point, honest. Because I feel like from a writing development standpoint, and also because you want players, I mean, not everybody's going to do all of these quests, although you should, because they're great and they have some additional story that culminates.
Cool
That's really
lore,
fantastic.
cool lore.
Cool lore.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I mean, of course, not everybody will. People may forget that they exist. So you want each quest to have consistency and kind of provide the same thing. But I do sort of wish, since this is our sort of last analysis of these, I do kind of wish that they had done something very different for each quest. And this one actually ended up being one of my favorites. I do really like the story, but it would have been very fun to have like almost a completely different formula for each that really felt as though it were appropriate to that type of quest or that type of class and its niche, So yeah, I mean, it's the same formula. This one has a kind of interesting tie-in with the Void, which I'm really, was really interesting to me.
Yeah.
But it is kind of formulaic. I don't know if everybody else felt like, oh, it was kind of repetitive, or you thought
How do
there
you
were enough
feel, casters?
casters. How do you feel?
I don't even remember the first quest, to be honest.
Same, honestly.
Yeah.
But it's funny to word it like you have to prove your strength, just in the irony of it. Because you look at casters and you're like, flex for me. I said flex.
I have a staff.
Yeah.
So for me, this was the first set of role quests that I did, naturally. So I think it was a totally new experience. When I got to the second and the third one, I kind of knew what was going to happen before it came up. So I had a fresh view on this. So I was just really enjoying the introduction of the characters and the way that they evolved over the storytelling. But yeah, at the same time, I don't remember what the first quest was.
So it seems like what'd you say?
I had to go back and remind myself.
Oh.
Yeah, I had to go look it up too.
Yeah. Actually, when I was looking it up, this is the last one I did, and I still had to look it up.
Right.
But when I was going through and truncating it for our little summary here, I was like reading through, like, is this one different? Because the way the beginning is phrased, it sounds like maybe you're gonna do something else, and then no, it's the same thing. Okay.
Enjoy.
So forgettable. Sorry, Essie. Forgettable.
At least the first step.
Yes.
At least the first step.
Yeah, no, just the first step. We're to clarify, we're gonna go
It's about to get
quest by quest and stop at the end of each little summary to discuss how we felt about that portion. So first portion, level 72 quest is called A Voice from the Void, which is where we get into the void stuff, which was the cool part. When meeting back up with Cerigg, he informs you that Phronesis has been sighted in the area and that he's put together a plan to observe the virtue from afar, safety and all that. The goal is to see how far away from his hollows one must be to avoid being sucked into the void.
I really want to press this button right now, but I won't.
What button?
I will.
Nut.
It was in red.
Goodness.
On the outline, it's just in red. I'm like, I just want to punctuate it. It's,
Sure, this is a very terrifying thing. It would be very bad. So this seems like an appropriate response to really bookend that.
No.
Yeah, exactly.
The catch is that you have to first restore a mannequin that he wants to use to tail Phronesis. But you're the Warrior of Light, so you MacGyver that guy back together and get on your way. The mannequin does its job, being swallowed up into the void, never to be seen from again, possibly. It would be cool if it showed up in a later quest. Wouldn't that be?
That would be amazing.
Yes, you're just like, hey,
we go to the void.
Yeah.
There's just a mannequin somewhere.
Yeah, it's labeled that mannequin you doomed.
Yeah, and only casters can see it. That'd be pretty amazing.
Yes, that would be
Oh no.
Yeah. If you had completed that quest, maybe in a future X-Pack, if we do go to the void, you just see this mannequin somewhere. That would be so amazing.
That was so good.
Please.
It's like finding Alpha and Omega in the overworld.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what you don't expect is a voice coming from beyond the hollow. At Cerigg's suggestion, you channel your Aether into the gaping void to serve as a beacon and are astonished to see a boy emerge from the other side. Unsure what to make of the situation, you decide to return to Mortsuk, as you do, with Cerigg and tend to the frightened ailing child. So, a kid pops out of your experiment.
That. I did not see that coming. Definitely. I was like, wait, what?
Me neither. And I think this is maybe why this one ended up being my favorite. I just loved that layer of, I don't know, living this mystery on both sides, because in some of the other quests, we're sort of tracking the past, right? And it's very much something where we're kind of just going through and we're getting flashbacks and we're using the echo and we're discovering what happened. So it feels a little bit more passive in the sense of just trying to get the context that we need about something that happened long ago to help us deal with a current threat. But in this one, it is so fun that there is actually somebody who is a part of this that is alive. And this mystery and the fact that somebody has just been chilling in the void and then popped out again is really fascinating. And it's really, I think it's a good way, even if that first quest wasn't very memorable, this one definitely was for me.
Yeah.
I think
They're like,
my
sorry.
favorite part about this quest. Sorry, go.
No, you.
My favorite part about this particular quest was the science. You know,
Right.
It's like they've got those giant gaping holes into the void. They're going to suck up everything, and we need to know exactly how far away you need to be to avoid this.
Right.
We're going to run an experiment. We're going to, we're going to have a hypothesis. We've got a falsifiable, statements.
Yeah.
I loved it. It was
Control group of Lost Mannequin.
I mean, it's
the
one of
kid hopping
those.
out was surprising, but
Yeah.
I'm amazed. I love this.
It's one of those things that, to me, like echo casters in general. It's like, all right, the stutter stepping, trying to cast and move, and just learning exactly where you have to be to just not get hit by that. It just exactly. It's like, oh, well, I don't have to move. I know that right here, I'm good. That was just the science behind finding out. When you die a bunch of times, accidentally.
It's the practical application.
It's the true intelligence of the caster.
Exactly.
I do a bunch of dumb stuff to find the smart thing.
Yeah.
My goodness. I'm gonna have to write that down. Maybe that should be the title. To find the smart thing.
Yeah. No, seriously, writing it down.
As you make a note. Make a note for the title in the
It's there.
document.
It's
Perfect.
there.
I really thought you were kidding. Yep.
No, I'm not. That was not a kidding. I'm very serious when it comes to these appropriate titles. I think that just kicked Mendacity and Genesis out the window. I'm also really proud of myself for remembering Mendacity and Genesis. So. The level 74 quest is called Echoes of the Past. The boy is physically fine, hurrah, but remembers nothing except his name, Taynor.
Boo.
Boo. Do you
No,
not
you
like
said
amnesia?
hurrah, so I wanted to say boo.
Oh,
No,
Taynor Swift.
Oh, Taynor Swift. Womp.
Taynor Swift has come through the void for
Oh no.
Yet he swizzles back from the void.
Oh my God.
Oh,
I don't know
no.
about you, but he's probably
No.
like 12. The carer who examined Taynor claims that the boy possesses considerable magic powers, and drawing the conclusion that he doubtless has a master or tutor somewhere out there, the bounty hunter proposes speaking with a traveling merchant in town to see if anything might be gleaned as to your young friend's origins. I feel like that's a big stretch, but
Yeah.
I mean, what you gonna do?
I don't know. There's not a lot of people left around. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it is tough because since so many of the people that would have been relevant at Taynor's original timeline are just completely gone, erased. I mean,
but we don't know that yet.
That's true.
well, in
Yeah.
theory, yes, you know.
Yeah.
We don't know it at this point, but like from a setting up the story standpoint as a writer, right? You're
Yeah.
trying to figure out like we know what the context of this character is, but how do lead players to make this discovery? Are they going to the ruins of old magical civilizations? Okay, but then what even gets them to go there? So I
Yeah.
guess the idea of like going to somebody who's probably traveled these lands a lot and just saying, hey, have you noticed any kids with like super magical powers? And a parent that might be like, where's my child? You know, like that's like
Fair.
it's not it's not a terrible idea, but the way that that actually connects into Taynor's like who he is and that realization is maybe a little bit more of a stretch. It's a little,
Yeah.
you know.
Mhm.
Ivory Jasmine in chat said Taynor Swiftcast.
Oh no.
It's good. It's good.
That's so good.
That is so good. Can we please call him Taynor Swiftcast for the rest
Yes.
of this summary?
Yes,
Thank
definitely.
you.
All right.
Yep.
The merchant actually does have a story for you. The stretch was accurate. Of an ill-fated mage who was attacked by a Xenedra and was separated from his child. But when you go to investigate, you learn the son of the wounded mage has already been found. The kindly boy offers to show Taynor Swiftcast around the premises in hopes of further rekindling his memories. Taynor
man.
Swiftcast promptly gets lost after a heated argument with the other boy, running off on his own, like a fool.
Yeah.
But it gives him great material for his next single.
Yes.
Oh, right.
I'm like, I'm
That's
sure
true.
there's a song that applies to this.
Yeah, it's
I can't
another
think of any
breakup
other
song,
ones.
definitely.
Shake it off, dude. Okay.
Oh,
Oh,
no.
there we go.
Cerigg decides the place to start
Yeah.
looking is the Fields of Amber, and miraculously, words are hard, he's spot on. You find Taynor under attack by nasty-looking Xenedras. You successfully dispatch the Xenedras, imagine that, and rescue Taynor Swiftcast from harm. But suddenly, it's echo time. In your vision, you see that the boy was a young mage training under the same teacher as Nielbert. Or Nielbear? I don't know. Nielbert.
Nailbear? Yeah.
Nailbear.
Nilebert.
Yeah, Nilebert.
That's how I pronounce it too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nilebert.
We'll do Nilebert. That sounds better. My brain went to trying to Japanese.
Be French. Yeah.
You turned him into a cat boy.
Meow.
Oh no.
I'm so sorry. One of
death.
one of the warriors of light who now roams the area as the Pale Phronesis. I feel like you can tell the sentences I stole from Gamerscape from mine, because mine are like
from the wiki.
Yes, mine are like Taynor promptly gets lost. That's me.
Or is this like just this level of like just vocabulary on the wiki that's like, okay, well I can read that. That's fine.
It's like, that sounds beautiful, but it is long to say.
Yeah.
3 sentences smushed into he get lost.
Yeah.
Upon returning to the inn at Journey's Head, Cerigg explains to Taynor Swiftcast that, as bizarre as it may sound, the events of his memory must have taken place over... Wait, did I skip a sentence? No, I didn't. Okay. Must have taken place over 100 years ago. This is where we learned that he's an old boy. Cerigg is now convinced that Taynor Swiftcast is the key to vanquishing the dread Phronesis.
Oh, boy.
Taynor Swiftcast is one of the ancients, and he is the key to vanquishing the dread Phronesis.
Accurate. Truth all around.
Oh, man.
How do we feel about this quest?
Really good now that we're calling him Taynor Swiftcast.
Yeah, that really helped it.
This was a big like galaxy brain moment for me, because I think it's like the first time I think that you really get that big sort of like, I guess, flashback of it all, and you realize, oh, this is why they're role quests.
Right.
Oh no.
I had the exact same reaction when I was doing that quest. I guess at the beginning I didn't think it was so much of a stretch that we went around the city asking people, because if a kid were to just pop out of a hole in the fabric of space and time, I might just walk around and say, "Hey, is anybody missing something? I found
Is this yours? We heard that people were getting sucked up, and then this one popped back out. Does it belong to you?"
You Will Smith gesture to Taynor Swiftcast.
I just, like, when he ran away, I was like, stupid child. Why?
Yeah.
Why escort a child? Why?
Do you even know where you are? Do you even know where
exactly.
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean,
it was really fun.
It is really fun, and it's super cool too, because I think as we kind of look beyond this quest, right, into the future of the first. And obviously our, 8-man raids are kind of dealing with that at this point. How do we literally make the land inhabitable again? But there's this whole other question of how do we, in some sense, reclaim the culture, technology, development, magical studies, all of these things that have been lost over, the past generation or two as this devastation has occurred. And Taynor is he's really interesting in that regard, because here is a person who grew up in the pre-destruction of the world, and the role that he could play in the future for the first is massive. So like getting this reveal about him, yes, in a very personal way, it connects to the idea of, Phronesis might have a heart and there might be more in this, and they obviously knew each other, and how can we use it? But on a larger scale, it's really amazing to have this revelation too, because I think that he could be somebody fundamental in helping the first if he goes that route.
If nothing else, he could throw a giant wrench into the Ascians' plans, because they're systematically smushing these worlds back into ours, right? So if we take all of those people, put them into his little dimensional portals, and put them on the source or somewhere else, they can't smush them back into us.
That's true.
Oh, well, I didn't even think about that.
That's a really big stretch, but
But yeah, that's true.
Anything to mess with the Ascians.
That's true.
Yeah, the ways that the walls between the different worlds are breaking down is so fascinating to me. I mean, I keep trying to think like what the overall end game is going to be. And obviously there's this big discussion now, is it worth it for us all to be whole? Should we be reunited? Are people as individuals, is their life worthy in that sense? Because this is a great debate with Emmett Selk, right? That they should have their own independence. Will we see a future where we're going back and forth between all of the different planes as if they were just part of our Aethernet, And I think that's really neat. And seeing these kind of collide is also pretty amazing. And who knows, if we do go to the Void, maybe Taynor will show up again because he spent some time there. Maybe, we know there's a lot of other people at Nuclei as well that could be vital to that. So maybe it's also a little thread there.
That would be really cool.
Oh.
So that's like the biggest brain response I've heard about like the future of Taynor Swiftcast.
Yeah.
In the world of Final Fantasy XIV, and yeah, absolutely. I cannot wait to see where the story evolves in terms of like how the different worlds are going to interact with each other, and whether or not we're going to see these kind of callbacks. One of the things I think is interesting about the role quests in general is that I think we can kind of assume, because there's a lot of extra stuff that happens in the story that they never reference in the MSQ, because they can't assume that all of the players have gone through it. But I'm pretty sure the stuff in the role quests doesn't fall into that category, because you have to at least do one or two of them to get to level 70 or max level.
Yeah.
So, I'm really interested to see how they pull those characters back into the MSQ, if at all.
They have to.
It would be great.
They absolutely have to. We're gonna get to a point where we have to deal with this mystery artwork, right?
Yeah.
It's true, honestly.
It's gotta all tie together. I wanted to so badly.
Get out your murder board with the red string, and we figure out how Taynor connects to
I know, our little tin hats. Get the tin hats on, everybody.
Yes.
I meant to make one. I was gonna make one so that when you said it today, I could just be like,
we should all have tin hats. That'd be so good. Yeah, we don't really know what the scope is, and I think it's an exciting time because 14 has proven that. Sharp, exactly what you were saying, that they can't always use everything. But the amount of times that they do surprisingly bring people back or threads back, Crystal Tower was something where, that was a huge risk to say, hey, we're going to make a huge part of our newest expansion come from this 8-man raid or a 24-man raid back in the original release of the game. You never hear people doing that. So it is possible that we see a lot of these characters come back.
I like story. Okay, level 76 quest, Nilbert. Yeah, Nilebert. His lament. Taynor Swiftcast shares with you the memories that have finally returned to him. He and Nilebert were born over a century ago as scions to a consortium of powerful mages, the leaders of which sought to master the arts of opening portals to other worlds, which is what led me to say, oh, what if he sends people, blah, blah, blah. During a dangerous magical experiment, Taynor was sucked into a rift between worlds. That's why you wear your safety glasses, where he remained until you rescued him. And due to the timey-wiminess of it all, what felt like a relatively short span of time for the boy amounted to some 100 years in the world that he left behind. Taynor Swiftcast has also begun to recall the incantations that he learned, incantations which might serve you well in your confrontation with Phronesis. Traveling first to the fields of Amber. The Void is successful in opening a portal, if only for a moment, before Phronesis himself sets upon you. Apparently, the portals draw him in.
Yeah.
Taynor Swiftcast succeeds in pushing away one of Phronesis' hollows and saving Cerigg from a fearsome fate, when suddenly, inconvenient echo! You bear witness to yet another vision from a century prior, wherein a youthful Nilebert begrudgingly lends his strength to the warrior Artbert. He's really grumpy in this quest. He is
a
huge grump.
Yeah.
Checks out.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is an actual fight encounter that I screwed up like 5 times. It might not have been 5, it might have been 3, but it was not it was not a single time that I screwed up this fight. I don't remember why at this point. I just remember going, this is now my least favorite. I'm not a caster. So they fight this monster, which you also then have to fight. And after you win, After 5 tries, Nilebert confesses that he was after something called the Sorceress Stone in the Fiend's possession, and which is to harness its energies to save his friend Taynor Swiftcast, who I guess he may or may not have been the one to shove him into the void, but he wants to be the one to pull him out.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he does later. No, you do later. Never mind. He does make the portal, though.
Yes, he does make the portal.
Yeah.
Okay. But he ends up having to destroy the stone when it's revealed that failing to do so would destroy the mountain and put countless other lives in danger. It's a big trolley problem here, and he chooses to kill 5 people. No, 1 person instead of 5. In the end, he joins up with the party of adventurers, and Ardbert promises to stay by his side until they can find a way to bring Taynor Swiftcast back. What a nice guy. When you wake up from your vision, the coast is clear somehow. Hearing your tale of visions you saw, and recalling his own experience locking gazes with Phronesis on the battlefield for the first time, Taynor is at long last able to accept and make peace with the knowledge that the Sin-Eater is his friend. Very sad. He resolves to join you in Cerigg. Not that he really had a choice. In trying to bring Phronesis down so that he can restore his old friend.
Did he have a choice? Would we have let him
no,
go?
he's a kid. He's just because he's 112 doesn't mean that he's not actually 12.
Yeah, I mean, we weren't going to let him just leave.
I mean, yeah, but technically, I guess he could have said, no, I'm out. Or we could have seen, for the purposes of story, no, they would not do this.
Yeah,
but I mean, he could have said, like, yeah, that jerk pushed me. I'm out. He can just suck it.
Later, nerds.
I mean, he could have, I guess. But I think that a lot of things, and it's. I'm actually really glad we went over this quest today, because thinking back on Yoshi P's New Year's discussion, his little, his little New Year's post and little snippet that he's put up there, I think this idea of trying to do what is right or good, and then how we measure or weigh the morality within that, is something that we've seen a lot in Shadowbringers in a lot of different ways, and especially in this quest, on both sides, right? So we have Nilebert, who has to come to this crossroads, and many of the companions do in these flashbacks that we see, where he's going, I know that to hopefully do something good for this person I wronged, I would have to, endanger the world. Or do I destroy this thing and have faith in the people around me that even by destroying this, maybe at some point I will be able to save him. And then to later become this monster through the good deeds you tried to do to save the world, only to realize that you have, because of your lack of perception and, awareness of the whole situation, you have led to this destruction. And now you are trying, with the last bit of your consciousness that remains to save this person, but you're actually killing people in the process.
You're hurting my heart right now.
Yeah, it's so many little turns and twists and turns, and like the perception of what we think we're doing and the trust we have in others, and then how that pans out in the repercussions of the world. And that's exactly what this New Year's snippet was about. This idea of, what have we been doing? What are we going to do? And what does that mean? And is it us, the Warrior of Light, or is it them, or is it even entities we don't know? So it's interesting to see how these echo throughout all these quests and that sort of struggle.
So how is the fight to you guys, being Nilebert?
I actually don't remember this. I don't remember this one being hard for me personally.
I don't either.
Yeah.
Because I know that if it was hard and if I had failed many, many times over, I definitely would have remembered it.
Yeah.
But I think this one was...
I think I was doing something wrong. Because, you go through the caves, you go through the little tunnel, do like 3 trash fights, and then you get to the boss thing. And then I think you're supposed to do a specific thing, and I just did not read the little tidbit up in the corner and just smashed my face into the ground like 3 times before I woke up and was like, oh, well, I'm dumb.
I'm curious. This is a sort of bigger question. Out of all of the so those sorts of taking on the role of a character fights that we had to do in Shadowbringers, what was everybody's most memorable? Was it this caster? It doesn't seem like it. Or was it something else? And why do you think that one stuck with you versus, maybe some of these ones in the caster quests or in the role quests?
I mean, for me, it's outside of the role quest, but being Estinian was so cool.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I wish you guys could see my face, because as soon as Rook started asking that.
Yeah.
So full confession, I literally finished 5.1 MSQ about 30 minutes before we hopped off.
Yeah.
And I was on voice with one of my friends, because he was like, "Are you doing it right now?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Can you get on voice?"
I want to hear this.
I was screaming the entire time. Just that instance was so damn cool.
It really was.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think that for me, that kind of overshadows the other times that we've played as one of these characters. Like, I'm trying to remember it, and I'm like, yeah, there was some gimmick that I don't really remember. But Estinian was cool. Wait, no, it's role quest, right? Don't think about Estinian right now.
Yeah, the actual role quest fights, I don't know if it's because they were, fighting against the possibility that people were going to be playing classes that they might not be used to if they're going through. Yeah.
Right.
But it's funny because, when I think about this one, for example, I don't remember much about it. I think about the tank one. I remember I had some difficulty. There's a couple little mechanics in it or something that it took me a second to figure out. But the one that from just the base game that stuck with me was Thancred's, because I felt like it was really like a narrative. And in the same way that Estinian... The fight where he sinks down and there's the
dead fight, that was actually the one I was gonna say.
Fight.
Yeah. Like, I love those moments where you can hear his heartbeat and he's getting tighter and
it's in your ears. It's good.
Yeah, it felt like such a story moment to live. And I think the Estinian thing is the same, where you're like, this is a real moment in the story that I'm living in some kind of tangible way. And for me, like, this caster quest, I don't know. I don't feel like the different role quest instances really left much more of an impression on me beyond, this is just like a token instance fight that we have, which is kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
I got the same impression. The caster DPS one, I honestly, I don't remember what the mechanics were. The one from the role quest, the one that stuck out to me the most was the healer one, because I don't know, I'm just not very good at
that one stuck out to me. Go ahead, sorry.
Really? I was going to say, I loved the mechanics, like telling a story through mechanics in an encounter, and just making you as the player have to go through the same struggles that the character is experiencing by having to push those buttons that you may not want to press, but you have to, otherwise you lose, right? I love that, because it really just immerses you in the narrative, I think. And that's, cutscenes are pretty passive, just watch them happen to you. But when you're actually playing the character and you're sitting there, and you're controlling what they do. That's a whole other level, I think, of immersion that we're just scratching the surface of.
Right.
It's funny you should phrase it that way, because the healer one stands out to me because I did it on Astrologian. And when they were like, sleep this guy, I was like, Astrologian doesn't have sleep. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
They do now. It's one of those cross thingies, and all the healers get. But at the time, I was like, huh?
What?
Can I finish this? Oh.
Building on that, what if they made you have to cast a spell at the stone? Like, you're doing the fight, and then they do that bit. They say, hey, dude, we're gonna have to destroy this. And then you had to cast the spell on it. Like, that would be great.
So good. Yeah. Aldianaux, that's such a good idea.
Why would you say such things?
I know, right? It would have hurt, but it would have left that memory, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, making it something where you are actively doing something. And like, maybe the longer you Ardbert is like saying things to you to try, or like, that would be so, I would love that. That would be so cool. These hard decisions, right?
Right.
That you might have to enact. And it's tough because, having an actual fully realized sort of cutscene is immersive in its own way. But there is something to be said about these actual playable moments. Like Sharp, I think you nailed it. Exactly that. There's something about living that struggle and trying to figure out new ways that we can do that. I mean, the Nadam was a great example from Stormblood.
Right.
These livable moments that we can expand on.
So yeah, I guess we like that one. But we'd have liked to have seen it formatted a little bit differently.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Listen up, Essie. I don't know about you guys. I think probably we all agree that we really like having to be the characters to do the quest lines, but
yes,
having those little details like Charles mentioned would be beautiful.
If I can get one more point in move on from this quest. We talked about the encounter a lot, but at the very beginning of this quest, we get some insight into where Taynor Swiftcast comes from.
Right.
And remind me if I'm wrong, but weren't like Nilebert and Taynor being like manipulated by this organization for for military benefit at that point in time? What does that say about the state of the first 100 years in the past?
Right.
Yeah.
It's just they're training these children, to do this just to get, and I believe it was
Guardians.
Monetary. It wasn't monetary. It was like there wasn't a war yet either. It wasn't like, oh, we need this to save our country. It was like, we want to do this because we want to be more powerful. It wasn't like we have to.
They wanted to summon stuff from other places because
right,
why?
Exactly. Yeah.
Dangerous.
It wasn't like this is our last resort and now we're training children. It was well, they're pretty good. Let's just use them. It's such a. It's just so. What?
I mean, I guess because while you're casting it, there's a chance you're gonna get sucked into the void like Taynor Swiftcast. Why not just use kids?
That's such a good point. I honestly, Sharp, I hadn't thought about that, to be completely frank. And I think because we've seen the devastation of the first, there is this mentality, this idea, right, that we sort of imagine that, before everything went to hell, it was so great.
So good.
It was so good. And if we can just get everybody back. But, I mean, we have to remember that these stories that we're playing through, the Warriors of Light from this other world, responded to their times literally in the exact same way that we are doing and did. And when you look at that parallel with exactly like all of you said, Garleans, it just immediately came to mind. And this idea of, there were problems in the world that these people were responding to, and they tried to do good to overtake that and it led to this greater devastation. But when you think about it, being manipulated in the Ascians and the Flood of Light, which is sort of a mindless thing that happens once it's set into action, is nowhere near as complex and terrifying as what people with a will and a desire for power or for whatever it is do of their own volition to their own people and world. And that's almost worse. And now that we're facing this Garlean issue again, we know that the Garleans were manipulated in a lot of ways now, but we also know that they did a lot of stuff on their own that is terrible, like that are just war crimes and that are, that have just happened and that they have indoctrinated people and done all this stuff to people. And so it is really interesting to think about that as we now kind of look back and go, our own world is almost on this exact same threshold.
Of course, yeah.
What do we do?
Let it happen.
To do that.
No. Then, if Taynor Swiftcast has taught us anything with his magic and music, it's that we can't let it happen.
We have to. Otherwise, the world will be filled with light.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but it's fine.
Nuance.
We'll just go with.
And this is where the plot is going. Oh no.
Oh no.
Yeah. It's like an unanswerable question,
Right.
What
Bad
do we
stuff
do to
going to
bring
happen.
peace? Yeah, like what do we do to bring peace if the Ascians method is not good with the way our world currently is, because it does mean the loss of thousands of individual minds? Or, I mean, would we, if we all went back to the days of Amarot? Would we all have, nobody knows. And so the idea of having to work with people now the way it is and make peace or find some kind of good solution, it's a big unanswerable question as far as we know right now.
Right.
But I am almost positive that's what the story is about. That answering that particular question. Anybody else have anything about this particular one before we move on? Nope. Okay. Nope. Level 78. Taynor Swift's training day. This is a pretty cut and dry quest, I thought.
Right.
if he is going to join you, Taynor Swift decides he needs a training montage. And it went quite well, actually, all except for the fact that he has absolutely no hands-on work experience, so he will never get a job. To fix this, it's time for another seemingly innocent trip to kill some random monsters. However, Taynor doesn't fare so well and retreats from the battlefield dismayed. You offer your ever-present Warrior of Light Sunshine speech, and Taynor Swift is able to regain his courage, try again, and prove himself, like you've probably had to do like 4,000 or 5,000 times now.
Yeah.
And
That's good.
That's really it for that quest. You help a little boy get some courage to actually go into a fight, because, you know, he's 12. Maybe maybe he's got some powers, but he's never stabbed anybody before. Fights are scary.
And let's not forget that the person that he's fighting is his childhood friend.
Right.
Exactly. But a monster.
Yeah.
Still, though.
No, complex feelings.
Yeah, I love it. You know, it's this kid. He's 12 years old. He has this remarkable power that you, again, we have this callback. You're trying to use him to your benefit, right? So, just the way that his masters were back then, maybe for a different end, but it's still the same exact.
We're bad guys now too.
No.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But you're trying to get him to confront his childhood friend and possibly kill him. So you have to prepare the guy for that sort of eventuality, right?
Yeah, get in the robot, Taynor. Just get in the robot. Just do it. It's fine. I know you don't want to. Just do it.
We're done. I'm leaving. Going to a dark place.
Oh.
I was like, there are literally two things on my water bottle. One of them is D&D, and the other one is Gundam. So I was like, yeah, no, I got major Gundam Eva feels from this, like making this child do this. You know, like what? That's impossible. But you know, we're good guys. I mean, make them do it. It's great.
Yeah. We're warriors of darkness. There, it's okay to do
questionable
things. We are now Grey Jedi, or something.
Oh, good.
That worked?
Yeah, I think so.
Sounds good, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, this was a cute one. And talking about like living a moment, I feel like this one does let you kind of live that with him. And it's nice to see that in a world where oftentimes we just kill everything and then just don't worry about it ever. You know, like that's that. The end. It's a bigger issue than that. These are people that we might know. And as we get to the Garlean stuff, it's the same thing, you know? Right. I mean, there are so many forces that have been conquered from other places that were then indoctrinated and scripted into the ranks of Garlemald. And it is a complex issue. Or those areas that were like Alamigo, right? That were under rule for so long. And we see this with like some of the characters there, the fact that they have become part of almost this assimilated culture. And I think if we really get into the Garlemald stuff, seeing more things kind of like this little snippet where we're really seeing how that affects people in a much more like intimate way, a one-on-one, it would be really powerful for just the narrative there. Even if the story isn't, you know, all ancient civilizations and lost echoes, there is a real humanity to this kind of struggle that's, I think, really beautiful. Even for just a little quest.
Level 80 quest. The final quest, the final day. A tearful reunion, which very appropriate title, right? Though Taynor Swift, tearful. Get out of here.
I just wanted to make the pun.
I mean, it's there, right? Might as well make it.
Yeah.
I hate how much I love it. How could you do this to me? All right. Though Taynor Swift remains singularly focused on the confrontation ahead, Cerigg is concerned that the boy may be suppressing his true emotions. A very one-on-one special thing, like Rick said. The bounty hunter asks you to have a talk with your younger companion, one mage to another. I'm like, I'm not a mage. No, this is a mage quest. Okay. That you might help him work through any lingering anxiety or fears. Right. You speak to Taynor, who confesses that he does harbor a deep-seated fear that he might falter in battle. Still? I thought that was a quest. Condemning you and Cerigg to a grim fate in the void. Through your heartened words, the child's able to realize that the burden is not his to shoulder alone, and thus regain a measure of his confidence. You and Taynor Swift reconvene with Cerigg. I feel like Cerigg needs a name too. We'll worry about it later. and all present reaffirm that the time has come to take on Phrenesis once and for all. From here, you and your companions decide to make it for the central hills of Amber in Amarane, where Taynor Swift will work his magics to summon your foe to battle. And then there's a fight. Do you guys remember this fight?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
A little bit of yes, a little bit of no.
Yeah.
I do.
I remember this one.
There's some voids in it.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
why.
Void portals. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us about the fight, guys. You remember it?
So, I think the most memorable part about this fight was they did such a good job building up the lethality of those portals that I was absolutely terrified.
I did not want to touch one.
Yeah, I was going to instantly.
Insta death. Yeah. Oh my god.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. How cool would it have been though if? Oh, this would have been so good. If you did get too close to them, or it has like a little thing at the beginning that says, remember our tests and blah, 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 blah. And if you got too close to them, you got like cast into some other landscape and you were like until like Taynor managed to pull you out, or maybe, there's something in there you have to do, or that would be a really fun way to, I think, even really explore that in the fights.
Right.
Have something there. That would be really cool.
So like the Chrysalis fight?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. You get sucked into a void and you're in like a little different space.
Yeah. That'd have been cool. They could have reused it. Yeah. I mean, that would be great because, it is a DPS role quest. To put a DPS check in there makes a lot of sense, Yeah.
Next time I see, ask us for help.
Yeah, exactly. Just workshop it with us. We got you. Yeah.
Meanwhile, if we actually had to do that in the fight, we'd be like, why is this one so complicated?
What is happening? Yeah, but I
just want to get through this.
The storytelling backs it up in a way. I don't think you have to do that, Sharp. Just, like you were saying with your experience, you felt that because they give you a lot of context for the fight.
Exactly. That's,
Yeah.
I
can imagine, though, if they did that, add that little extra, vignette to it, that people would intentionally fail the mechanics.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. You got to know what it's like.
Exactly. And that would be, it is funny because I've gone through so many old instances now, knowing what we know, just like snapshotting things, like my tin hat's firmly on. And I'm like, okay, guys, let's see if there's a symbol on that wall. We got to figure out if that means that there's secrets we don't know yet. And I'm just like, keeping like a little notebook of it. Right.
Yeah.
But it would to see a little bit of that. And idea when we were talking about the earlier quest, like having to shatter the crystal yourself. Having those moments where you have to face this thing in a very tangible way would be amazing. Or even if you got towards the end of this fight or something, right? And we're thinking about how do you just gut yourself and the characters emotionally. And maybe there's a part where some part of the ghost of Nilebert is calling out or reliving this thing.
Just hanging out on a playground in the void.
Yeah. Or you have to see or watch as your young companion has to face the fact that this is his friend, and you're having to choose to attack this character, even though he's maybe he has a crisis halfway through the. It's oh, please stop hitting him or something. That would be really interesting.
You have to push a button to force the kid to do what you want.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh no.
Oh no, that's too close to being a summoner. I don't want it.
It would be good for the quest, right?
Yeah,
Taynor Swift, the new summon.
Oh boy.
On the flip side, having these things, these presumably AoEs that they have ground into your head that you should not get hit by. It kind of. I don't want to call casters out here, especially black mages.
Okay.
But
I see where it's going.
But don't stand in shit.
You're not my real dad.
Stay away from the damage. Don't stand in shit. Not necessarily you guys, just in general.
Right, of course, in general.
Yes. But you know,
because we don't have any black mages here today, not even one.
Yeah, clearly you never saw me do Cerigg.
But the stereotype, whether deserved or not, is that casters, especially black mages, 80, I went 50, 60, 80 in my brain. Black mages are this is an AoE. I can't move. I'm casting.
Right.
So
yeah, that's true.
Grind that into their heads. Just take a step. Just time your stuff better. And all the like hardcore black mages are like, no.
Sharp, I'm
fine.
honestly glad that this one stuck with you so much, because I honestly don't remember much about a lot of the fights from these. And there are some really nice moments. I mean, for sure.
Right.
The tank one's probably the one that sticks with me the most, but I loved hearing you talk about it. And although there are these things where, yeah, we're talking about increasing the immersion of it, this is still really cool that in these quests, we had these encounters, we got to fight these unique foes, we got to experience this stuff, and it's fun to kind of look back on it. And even if there are ways, I think, to make this more of a narrative emotional experience, it's also a really good kind of learning tool. I mean, just like we were talking about with the AoEs and stuff, for anybody who might not have played those roles, what are the main things? If we condense your class to 5 buttons, what are you going to have to do in this fight? I think it is kind of a smart move from SE in a way, too, to kind of say, hey, let's see if anybody gets interested in these types of classes because we introduced them to this.
Right.
And let's also just give them like a little crash course
Yeah.
about what they might have to do.
AoE the encounter.
Yeah,
Yes.
it really is. Thanks for that. You know, for the caster one. Thanks.
You
On that
deserve
note,
it. Just kidding.
Yeah.
One of the things I thought was really, I don't know if anybody else felt this way, but I loved seeing the progression of the, the Phronesis and the other Sin Eaters over the course of these quests, from going from like impossible, you cannot even begin to fight this guy, to you're in the last encounter and you're seeing it, the point bar go down from 100% down to 0. Right?
Yeah.
When I was at the very end of fighting Phronesis and I was just about to finish him off, that was very satisfying to me. I thought that the build-up was fantastic about how you prepare yourself. You've got, you have to go in there and you go through this whole character progression, and at the end, it really pays off.
Yeah,
I agree. Definitely. And then that's what I really love about the role quests. Just taking it from job to role and having everyone experience, the same story and see the character build. And, of course, it's an MMO, so you're going to do one at 72, 74, 76, But yeah, the capstone was really, a great moment, I agree.
I feel like it was also, from like a development standpoint, a really good way to still have, first of all, good story in there, and a way for you in your job to have sort of progressed through a story as they were doing with all the class quests, but to also condense it and save their time for other things.
Right.
So, because having to do a class quest for every single job does get annoying. I'm not, because I'm weird. I'm the weirdo that levels everything up to max level every time, and I'm just like, okay, some of those were good, some of those were not. Condensing them down to make less work for themselves and to make the storyline of each one better, I think it was definitely the way to go.
Right.
Out of curiosity, does anybody kind of miss, though, that sense? I'm just honestly curious.
Yeah.
Do any of you miss the sense of, like, this is me really specifically tied to this job or this role that I'm playing, and like achieving something within the context? Like when I think about the original relic weapons and stuff, these are like legendary artifacts of your job, and there's this like idea that you have somehow ascended as a paladin or a white mage or a
paragon of all blanks in the world.
You're achieving something within that niche that you fill in combat. Did any of you miss that, or is everybody pretty much like, no, I just think as long as there's a good story and I feel as though there was a good resolution, that I'm okay?
I think I definitely did. As a person who has spent a lot of time thinking about the backstory of my character, because I do role play her sometimes. It was strange not being able to fit in like the summoner aspect of it,
right?
And like build upon that, because there's nothing really to pull. I mean, you definitely talk about like your experience fighting Phronesis and how that affects your character, of course, but it was something lacking in not learning more about the summoner's background even more, and how they could have built a little bit more onto it.
I get that.
I desperately missed it. Desperately. because I was like, okay, and now Phoenix. But how? How did I learn how to do this? What?
That's
why did I get this?
It especially didn't make sense for mine because I still haven't finished Coils.
Oh, yeah, see?
Oh,
yeah, right,
I still have not finished Coils.
Ooh, yeah, see.
Yeah.
And that's what I really missed. Like, you know, there's a quest for every job after you go back, and I was just sitting there, you know, like
they're lackluster.
and Gridania, and they're like, "Hey, what'd you go do?" Like, nothing. I just learned how to summon Phoenix. You're not going to ask about it. Cool, that's fine. We don't need to talk about it. It's okay. It's fine.
Yeah.
No, when you phrase it like that. Go ahead, you.
No, you go, Zen. You go.
Okay. When you phrase it like that, like, did you miss the other jobs? Like, I really did enjoy them smashing it down into the role quests.
Mm-hmm.
But I do feel like the very tiny job quests that they gave us for each individual thing needed something more. So I'm gonna say yes, I did miss it a little bit. I don't want full fleshed out like we used to have. Go stop what you're doing every 2 levels and go get your next ability type stuff. I don't want that. I'm very glad that's gone. But I do miss the story behind it. So I would have liked if maybe the final one was a little bit more than, all right, you accomplished some stuff. I don't care what it is. Go do a dance. Go sing a song. You know?
Yeah.
I agree.
That's what they were. And well, the dancer one was kind of cool. Like, you basically just watch a minute of you spinning around in mirror to the dancer person. It's like, okay, that does nothing. That was a compliment.
Yeah.
I mean, I did love that. I loved that probably the most out of any of the capstones for the classes, because at least there I felt like, oh, we're doing an art together, and art is beautiful, and we're bonding. You know, like I feel.
Yeah, no, definitely for the summoner one too. I don't know how many other people here have done the summoner one, but I really want more from that.
I need it.
I need more from that because like it goes back. I mean, do you guys care if we spoil it or not?
I mean, it's a big old spoil cast today, so you're
that's fair. I mean, you go back and visit Fordola and Ehrenwald.
Oh,
I didn't realize that.
It kind of expounds on. I don't remember which level this was, but it expounds on the whole. We were trying to teach.
Summoning.
Yeah, we were trying to teach the art of summoning again, and we are able to do that with Fordola and Ehrenwald because they have the echo.
Right.
And especially because you kind of leave Fordola in her cell after the mini Lakshmi instance, and you never revisit her again. Like,
she apparently. Yeah, it's really interesting with her because she apparently has a story in the collection of short stories that they did. I think Fusion was talking about that. Yeah. But it is very weird that we haven't gotten more resolution with her in game.
So we got that cuts. You get that like little quest at the end of the summoner one, and I'm like,
and now
are they actually going to do more? And then it ended, and I said, what do you mean there's not a next quest? Please, Essie, please.
Yeah. Why are you doing this? How is Black Mage?
Yeah, how was Black Mage?
Yeah, Black Mage was basically the same. You know, it's like you go in and I think Black Mage. It's been a while, but I think that there's a little mysteries quest that I forget that you have to do. But it's basically like the rest of them. It's like you go through and it's like your class's basic, greatest hits, right? So you say hi to some folks, you make sure that they're all fine, and then that's it.
Yeah.
But thinking back on it, the point about Phoenix I think is really interesting because I think that kind of represents the fact that you have now moved beyond all of your old trainers. Now you are the one that is creating new powers and spells. And because it's you, they don't necessarily need to go through the whole,
it's true.
Do like a vision quest and do this sort of thing.
Yeah.
What I would like to see though is I would like to see like you said, just some recognition. Like maybe you get back and you say, "Hey, look, I've got Phoenix now," and somebody says, "Wow, tell me how to do that so we can advance the state of summoning as a whole for everybody else."
Right.
And then you're like, "I can't. Some twins will beat me up."
Yeah, some twins will beat me up because I keep flexing their grandpa.
Yeah, exactly.
That would really be so neat though, because Sharp, I'll be completely honest, I had not thought about these like capstone quests as being that, right?
Mhm.
You have moved beyond your
Right.
trainers, and now you are kind of the person on the cutting edge, the frontier, the new frontier of your class. And I would love to see that be in the narrative, where
Yes.
I mean, you're like, you have something. I mean, oh my gosh, how cool would it have been if they somehow instanced you some little thing with like summoner where I don't know, you're talking to Phoenix or you're having some kind of thing, right? Where you are putting 2 and 2 together as this person, and you're like, wait, I can, and it's tough if you haven't done those quests, but even if they gave you some kind of context there or something where you get to see and be a part of this discovery, or you get to teach it to other people, or, you know, like with White Mage and the Lilies, that whole rework happened, but there's like nothing in the actual, you know, quests that we have about that because it just didn't really exist. So now you just have these lilies that you use, but having that history and lore somehow would be so amazing.
Yeah.
Even if you finally go back to the forest, and sure, maybe only the Padgels really get to talk to the elementals, but you have a moment where you get to speak with them because of your training, or, you know, whatever it is. That would be so cool.
All I'm imagining is them doing this grandiose quest. They're like, oh, you are the paragon, you are the teacher now, and then they just automatically put you into a mentor roulette.
No.
Finish this,
Not like this.
and you get
Not
your
like
upgrade.
Well, but think about it. With the trust system, we could do something kind of like that, right? What if instead of having this, well, Zen, hear me out. What if instead of having this like greatest tours, go talk to all the characters that used to be relevant to the quest, but now they're not going to be relevant anymore, so I guess we'll tie them off somehow. Like, what if instead of doing that, I mean, like we took them through and we taught them something, and by the end they had acquired that new skill, or like we took them to some kind of mini instance, or we got to talk with them during it. I mean, you could have almost, rather than having this big voiced cutscene or, you know, whatever, unvoiced, you could do something like that to still give a sense of your role, but being able to like play it out with other people, or, you know, like with these NPCs, or I think there's a lot of things they could do with it.
Yeah.
It would be interesting.
Actually, going off that, I just had a really funny idea about going back to your old trainers. I'm thinking about going back to Umitra and just being like, yo, I gotta tell you, your Stola did the thing again. You gotta talk to your sister.
You gotta keep her.
You can't talk to your sister. She's in a different plane.
Like, you can't, but I will gladly bring 5 million letters for you.
Yeah.
I mean, can I also just be real? Ishtola's Aetheryte and her blindness is still never ever been resolved, and
it hasn't.
I keep waiting.
It will.
I keep waiting, and I'm sure they're gonna hit us
die.
with it.
Yeah.
All right, let's I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Let's finish up this quest.
Oh yes, that's right.
Oops.
Right.
I didn't. I'm gonna let you finish. So yes, we do the fight. We win the fight, and little Taynor Swift is like, "Oh, that was sad, but I've come to grips with it." You learn that the whole time that Taynor was lost, Nilebert was trying to get him back, and that also helps him move on because that's super moving. That's why.
Right. Yeah.
Cerigg is basically the kid's like, all right, I'm not an adult, but I have the heart of an adult now. I've grown strong, and I will move on on my own. And Cerigg's like, nah, dude, let's hang out and be friends. So they become buddies and walk off into the sunset to the Crystarium together to hang out at the bar where everybody else is.
With the 12-year-old, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's the end.
I mean, he is an Elezen/elf.
That's true.
He could be older.
He could be.
He
definitely could be.
He looks about, if not a little bit older than Alice. You know,
so
an Aldianaux.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's totally fine.
Yeah. You can drink in Europe, probably. I think. A lot of the countries. Yeah.
Is he old enough to drink in Europe? He's an adult. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's ready for the front lines of war.
Yeah, he's okay.
He can drink beer.
This kid got yeeted into the void. Let's give him something.
Exactly.
All he has to do is show them his birth certificate. I am 112.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. He's the avatar. It's fine.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Thank
That's
you,
right.
yes.
That is what happened, kind of.
Yeah.
Ice ball, void.
Mhm.
Same
The void bird.
difference.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right.
Girlfriend didn't turn into the moon, but grandpa turned into a phoenix. Yeah, okay. It's good. I like it. It's Avatar.
Oh no!
Shots fired.
Oh my god. Oh my
That's rough,
god.
buddy. That's
Yeah.
Do we have anything else to say about this quest? I feel like we pretty much summed it up after the fight, but we did have to put the little happy, bittersweet ending in there.
Right, yeah.
So now we're
guess
going to talk. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I just had one thing.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Going back to talking about themes of Shadowbringers, one thing that's really always stuck out to me, because I talked about this a lot with friends, and how they really like just Shadowbringers. Like Heavensward used to be their favorite expansion, and now that Shadowbringers exists, it's all about Shadowbringers, and I totally get that, like 100%. But for me, like Heavensward still always has that like place in my heart. Like I think about it and I still cry. My heart still physically hurts. And a big thing that somebody described it to me was that in Heavensward, one of the overarching themes is kind of like, how far would your friends and comrades go for you? And in Shadowbringers, it gets flipped on your head. How far would you go for your friends? And I think I think the caster role quest is really exemplary of that, because we get to have both sides of the conversation here with Taynor Swiftcast and Nilebert. And like it wasn't just one for the other, because like Nilebert's story was trying to rescue Taynor, and now as Taynor has grown, he now has to rescue Nilebert from this curse, for lack of a better word.
Rina.
Hi.
Very insightful.
Yeah, I really feel, I mean, I'm a caster, but I really feel like we saved the best, set of quests for last. I mean, of course, everyone's going to have their own that they like the best, but to me, this is, even going over, the synopsis, playing some of them, this is the one that I'm like, oh, I'm going to remember that forever, just because of the way that it was. So, I don't know.
And now we're all speechless.
Yeah.
Now that I've given
Our
you all
hearts
your
are
feelies.
too full.
Yeah.
My heart is too full.
So well.
Yeah,
I can't say anything better than that, so I'm just gonna sit here in my own sadness.
Show over.
That's it.
Yep.
Now we're gonna talk about the caster DPS role life. Your experiences as your job.
Yeah.
That's why we have our lovely guests to help us out with that. Because I'm not a caster.
I only have red mage.
I mean, I have it and I enjoy it, but I'm not necessarily good at it.
That's me in tanking.
All right, guys. So, why DPS, specifically caster DPS? What's your motivator there? Feel free to just call out, and we'll get people as we want. Whatever.
Yeah. You guys go first.
Okay, I'll go first then. So why specifically caster DPS? So I've talked about this, I think, a long time ago, but I was a bard for a long time. Right? I was a bard all through, when I was playing, I played the game very casually initially. I was a bard all the way through ARR, all the way through Heavensward, right up until the point where I had a cast bar as a bard, right? Once I had a cast bar as a bard, suddenly I was sitting there thinking to myself, well, I lost all of the mobility I used to have. I lost all the things that I thought were really fun about bard. I have to stand in one spot. So if I have to stand in one spot, then I might as well play a more traditional cast.
Might as well hit harder.
Yeah, basically.
That's exactly right. That's the calculus I went through. So then I picked the Black Mage, and I have been in love with that class ever since. It's just so strategic. I love the ability, the fact that you have to really 100% learn all of the encounters and find out those little areas we were talking about before, where you're just like, okay, I can be exactly this far away from this mechanic in order for me to actually continue DPSing and lose the least amount of time. That aspect of the class really appeals to me.
That's the best thing I've ever heard about somebody being stuck behind the bard cast bar. To be 100% honest, like I played bard up until Dancer came out, so I was there with you, and I just kind of went, okay, this is my life now. But you took it and you made it into something better. I like that story.
I think definitely for me is DPS. I will always default to primarily a DPS job. For me personally, and for casting, I'm a huge fan of the fantasy genre and really just the aesthetics of Magic. So it was a really easy choice for me when I started playing. So that my story is pretty boring. I like Magic. I like casting. I like making things go boom. It's great.
That's legit.
Yeah.
What drew you directly to like Summoner? Was there something you just picked it up, or was it that you had other Final Fantasy experience that made you want to play that class?
I spent a lot of time on that screen actually during character creation. I was very much actually between White Mage, Black Mage, and Summoner, and I think I went with Summoner. I've really always liked the concept of being able to summon an otherworldly being to help augment your power. I'm a super big fan of that. And it also helps because Final Fantasy X is actually my favorite Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
I was going to ask.
I said, this is easy.
Right.
So I went with Summoner, and I kind of haven't looked back since. I've been slowly working on getting my Black Mage to 80 for my static, but I have such limited time that it's been real slow going. So
Right.
Yeah, it's funny because I actually started the game out as a Summoner because of Yuna. And I'm not ashamed. I'm not ashamed.
Yeah. I'm absolutely not ashamed either. You should not be ashamed.
You should not
Thank
be
you.
ashamed.
Let's not be ashamed about this. But
No,
it
it's
was,
fine.
I loved the aesthetic. I loved the idea. And one of my favorite things about the Final Fantasy games had always been the summons. I mean, the espers, the entities. Like, I loved them. And when I got into it and I found out it was like a lot of dots and you had a book, I was like, very bad. No, thank you. Where's my soul journey to acquire new spectral friends that can crush my enemies? Okay, no thanks. But of course, I mean, Summoner is great, but I ended up switching to heals. But I was curious how many people initially were drawn to it because, or if that was the case with you too, because of some of the precedent the franchise has added.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a big reason.
Yeah, for me, I play a lot of MMOs. I love MMOs. I love to raid MMOs. I have been on the cutting edge in a few of them. Rip Wildstar. I've said this before. And I always do DPS. That is just the kind of person that I am. I want to eke out that damage. I want to see the contribution in that way. I like that sort of thing. And I remember when I first started playing in ARR, because I tried 1.0 and I was like, nope, no good. Not going to do this one. When I came back, I was like, well, I'll be a warrior or something. Maybe I'll just tank. And then we didn't need any. So I was like, well, I guess I'll play Summoner. That seems cool. And that's just why I landed on Summoner. But why I stayed was because of the tactics, like Sharp was saying, like, it's not the same as Black Mage because it's Summoner is debatably much more mobile in different ways. I mean, for Red Mage, to me, Red Mage is like the least mobile caster to me. I mean, you do have a jump forward and back, but you only do that once in a while. Summoner doesn't have to stop, and Red Mage has to stop half the time. And Black Mage has some teleportation, but it's like Summoner is so mobile and so dynamic, eventually, that I stayed with it because it was so much fun. I think it was really when Bahamut happened. I was like, I'm never leaving. Nope, never leaving now.
Yeah.
Nope. Let me tell you about my Lord and Savior Bahamut. That's really that's what kept me here. And also the static said, we need a caster, but also it needs to be able to raise. So I was like, okay, that's fine.
I'm really hoping I can get more into caster DPS, which is kind of funny because in almost any other game, I am always drawn to casters. Like in single player RPGs, I will almost always make a caster because I really love them. But it wasn't until Red Mage came out that I actually went and got one of them and then leveled it aggressively. Like there was this period of time where I went, I'm gonna be a Red Mage main now. And I was like ready and I had signed my soul over. And then I realized that I actually do really love healing in MMOs and that I couldn't do that. But it's still like Red Mage for me is still one of my favorites because I just love the aesthetic.
Sure, yeah.
And I'm gonna be totally real about that. Like I did a lot of sword play in school and did like stage combat, and rapier was one of my favorite weapons. And the idea that you have this caster class that is doing magic in this really kind of fun way, and then leaping in to unleash this like torrent of a, closer to like a melee attack,
Yeah.
I love that. And I think it's so neat. And that whole kind of aesthetic comes together. So that always really drew me to Red Mage, but I'm trying. My next level is Summoner Scholar. I'm going to see if I can get into it. Same with Black Mage, because I know that they have a lot of really cool things to offer.
It's funny you should say the swordplay brought you to Red Mage, because that is one of my primary reasons too. I did a lot of all kinds of weapons in high school and early college with a sword trainer guy. Yeah, and my favorite thing was rapier and dagger. So it's like almost the same thing, except you're doing this instead of this.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, no, and I don't know. I used to be a Black Mage in 11. And that was my thing for the longest time until Corsair came out. And then I was like, oh, support classes are really fun. Oh no. I think this is me now. And actually, when I started 14, I went Conjurer, because back then Thaumaturge and Conjurer were basically both casters with a little bit of healing on both ends. And I was like, I don't know, this one instead of this one, right? And then that ended up being the healer. So I was like, Bard? I guess I'm Archer at the time.
Yeah.
And at that point, I sort of like re-gifted myself the idea of mobility and was like, goodbye, casters. Goodbye forever.
Yeah.
But no, I really do like, I like Red Mage the most. And maybe it's because it's the easiest to transition from my main job into this one that's kind of like, I hit the buttons because they tell me to.
Yeah, I hear that a lot about Red Mage, even back when it was released. Like my best friend, she is a bard dancer main. She really loves range DPS, and when Red Mage came out, she was like, okay, this is the one. This is the one. I really like it. It's not I don't have to stay in one place. And it's funny you guys brought up the swordplay thing too, because the big thing about Red Mage aesthetic that really got me was I was never on like color guard when I was in marching band. If I had been on color guard, I probably would have focused a lot on saber,
right?
As far as weapons go. So Red Mage is really good for the aesthetic. I really like it.
Right.
Sum up,
really thought
ladies like swords.
Yeah, I really thought I was gonna play Red Mage as my main when it came out, because I was a Red Mage in 11 and I loved it. It was very different.
Yeah, it's not the same.
But I loved it. I was like, okay, well, goodbye, Summoner. I'll be Red Mage. And then I just didn't like the output, really. That's what it came down to. I didn't like the output compared to what Summoner could do. Yeah.
I didn't like the output, and I didn't like how not as busy it was. It's really difficult not being busy anymore.
Right.
What were the major sort of characteristics or things you could do as a Red Mage in 11?
They were more enfeebling. They were kind of a support job. They didn't do very much damage. They would use status effects, but really, what they were there for was to give every mage in the party more MP. That's really what you needed a Red Mage for.
Refresh and haste.
Yeah, refresh and haste. That's
you could solo certain content on Red Mage. And,
yes, you could.
You did not melee. If you meleeed as a Red Mage, you would be laughed at.
Yeah, no, you don't do that. It was really, really fun to a point, but then I was like, well, I'm not going to play 11 anymore. But when I saw Red Mage was actually going to do the damages and look cool and have this sword magic, yeah, exactly. I'm very much looking forward to see what they do in 5.2, because they've talked about adjusting it. I don't know that it'll take over, but I'll definitely play it more.
Yeah.
I feel like we've covered these next couple of things.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to do, what's your favorite part of DPSing, specifically?
Those numbers.
The numbers.
The numbers.
The big boom.
Yeah.
Well, as the Black Mage, for me, it's absolutely the big boom. But I actually I'm not a crit build this time, so my booms aren't quite as big as they could be. I went spell speed instead.
Yeah.
But I think it's actually not something in the game for me. It's well, it is kind of. it's going through and trying to figure out how to eke out more damage. And I think that when you talk to most DPS players, they'll probably tell you the same thing. It's like, okay, what can I do the next time to better my performance, right?
The min-max.
The easiest classes to measure. Like, you either did more damage or you did less damage.
Right.
So more damage next time. That's absolutely the thing for me.
Yeah, it's very similar to me. For me, it's that experimentation of, okay, we're on this phase. I've gone into it this way because this happened. Okay, how do I recover from that? How do I do this? This was, I had to throw a raise while I was in Phoenix. Why? But that's okay.
Oh, yeah.
That's all right. Yeah, that's just it hurts so bad.
Yeah.
Especially when it's like, I don't even have Swiftcast, so I'm just gonna hardcast in Phoenix and it's faster, but why would you make me do this? Why would you do this to me?
You're making yourself do it.
Yeah, well, I would gladly not raise them. That's fine. But
just don't die.
Yeah.
Just don't die.
Yeah, just don't die. But yeah, it's that constant evolution of, okay, this is better that time, like, all right, cool, this fight, especially for summoner, because I haven't played very much Black Mage, it's the cycle versus the mechanics. I mean, I'm sure it's exactly the same, but like, since it's so incredibly strict, it's like, oh, well, I know where I'm in a fight because I cast this just then. I'm in Bahamut, so I know that this is happening, or I did this, okay, now the stage is going to drop out, we're on Leviathan. All right, I remember I need to move and try and stutter step. That stuff I really enjoy.
Yeah.
That's what really keeps bringing me back to DPS in general.
Because I think what I ended up finding that I loved about DPS kind of achieves the same result, but it's kind of from the opposite end. And I just within the past year, I think, have really started to get interested in or like really invested in running DPS. And with that, for me, it's always about like, I like the flow, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely makes sense.
Yeah.
I like, Bard and Dancer because they're like fast-paced, proc-based classes. And I love that. Like, I love having, these things that you have to do really fast, or you have to make these decisions and then sort of dovetail down it and get into this flow with the class, or maybe it's your burst window or, whatever it is. And that is really fun for me, paired with that sort of aesthetic sense and the feel of the different classes, because I think the DPS in particular feels so distinctive. Like, if you're doing you're doing Black Mage, it feels really different than playing Monk. If you're doing, like, there's something about the sort of space that you're in and the flow and what you're doing where it does feel like you are tackling, I mean, obviously you're trying to do damage, but you're tackling that in a different way. You're shoulder tackling it in a different way. Yeah. And of course, like, if you're doing the flow well and you're doing your rotation well, your DPS is also improving. But for me, it's always been less about like, what did I parse? And more about like, oh, I hit the button so fast. I lit right up and I punched his head off. Okay. Now
I mean, I definitely complain about raising a little bit, not that much, because it's part of it. It's
really
progression.
Doesn't complain like at all.
No, I mean, I complain in my own head, but I'm like, oh no. Yeah, but it's
that's not complaining. That's not.
But
it's not unless you put it out.
I mean, that's true. But when you get that, it's like, oh, someone died, and you just go, all right, no, I can do that right here, right now, before anyone asks for it. Before, like, usually the only way I know people have died is they go, oh crap, or something like that. And I'm like, immediately, Swiftcast, who was it, raised? Like, and I'm just still doing what I'm doing, and it just feels so good to be able to. Shift.
No, I was saying we had the conversation the other day where I was like, I feel like I'm being annoying when every time somebody like gets hit or dies, I'm like, oh fuck, and he's like, no, it helps me to know when I need to raise.
Because I'm not paying attention to anyone else's life bars. I don't know if you're dead or not. Like, I'm not paying attention to you. So if you don't say something, I won't know.
He died the other day. And I was like, oh, that doesn't help you. You're aware you're dead.
Target self. Why isn't my res working?
Yeah, why isn't it happening? And I think I died because I wasn't ready to raise someone. That happens to me all the time. I'll be like, I'll be like, okay, I can raise you. I'm gonna have to hardcast, and then I have to get on this side of the
That was so my static finally got into Titan last night because we've just like had a lot of hiccups with stuff.
Yeah.
And that was last night. There was a lot of like emergency res, and we've gotten really good in my static between me and our healers about like who is healing what. And like I always try to take the initiative when I know there's going to be a lot of damage output. I always say I'm resing blank now. We always call out like how long we have on our Swiftcast if we know that we need to res somebody. And it's really nice because you get into that flow not only with yourself but with your teammates. And that's probably my favorite part about like finally having a static is like I feel like everything's finally meshing together a lot better.
Yeah.
So I wanted to go back to something that Rook said a little while ago. One of the things I think Final Fantasy XIV does so well is when you're playing a class and you're pushing your buttons right, the game rewards you with all this great visual effects and just a lot of really positive, interesting feedback. So when you're there's a lot of it's not necessarily the incentive of doing more damage, but there's a lot of other incentives.
Oh, looks so cool right now.
Class well.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So for instance, when I'm playing a black mage, right? When you're playing a black mage, your entire existence revolves around Enochian and your timers. Everything fits together so well when you play and you're casting spells in the right order. You're like, okay, this is coming up because this cooldown just came off of cooldown.
Yeah.
You start to see all these things just kind of line up. That's great.
Like no other class, DPS, you know how much time they spent on these fights because certain things will be happening and you're like, there is a perfect window right here for me to do this thing I have to do as my class.
Yeah. You can and like I said, that's why I love that.
In 5 more seconds, if the stuff that's about to happen in 5 seconds were happening now, I could not do this thing as efficiently as I can in this space and time. And it's just like you can tell they put that effort in there for each class so that
it's kind
nobody has a too terrible time.
Right. I mean, there's definitely some. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was saying it's also really fun because I feel like as DPS, you obviously have such a direct connection. Like not only your own personal, impact. Oh man, I'm doing all this stuff and I'm looking really cool, which is really fun. But you also know that in a lot of situations, like something can't hurt you if it's dead, and that's kind of like that's true. That has been a big adjustment for me coming into DPS as a role, right? Because like as a healer, my mentality is like, if I can enable my party and if I can keep them alive and if I can get these things rolling or get that res off, I can allow the party to succeed. As a tank, again, I can facilitate this instance. I can soak this damage so that, things go smoothly. And as a DPS, you're just like, I will kill it.
Yeah,
and then
it will die.
It will be dead.
Yeah.
And problem solved, I think.
To me, there's...
It's really fun. Like, there have been a few runs because I've been leveling Monk, and boy, howdy, do I hate melee DPS. Let me just say that. Hate it so much. Melee DPS out there, you are actual saints. I have had my face on so many bosses' butts, and it's just inescapable, and that's where you live, and you can't escape it. I want to be out in the field. I want to be out there picking flowers.
Frolicking.
But I'm just here on the boss butt, and the tank keeps spinning him. Please stop. It's like, I just hate it very much. But it's also really fun because there have been these moments recently where I'm doing like leveling rules. Everyone dies. And I'm like, oh, I guess I kill him. And I'm like...
That's still my job.
It has been so fun knowing that in that moment, if I have my heals and I don't get overwhelmed by the sudden realization that no one will kill this thing unless I kill it in this instance, and this is the ultimate showdown of ultimate destiny, it's so fun. Yeah. And people are cheering you on and you're watching the health bar go down, and there's this very direct connection to the boss that is very different than a healer or a tank. Yeah,
that's your direct connection.
This is your direct connection.
Yeah, exactly.
That was kind of long, but that's my emotional journey through DPS.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Like you, when you said, "Yeah, well, if it's dead, it can't do damage." To me, as in a static, the moment where on Titan, when you eventually beat it, you're like, "Oh man, just barely under the timer." But as you get more and better and better at it, when you start skipping phases or that last bit, the merry-go-round, we don't have to do that. That's so good. That is another direct response to your ability is, hey, yeah, we didn't have to do that part we hate.
We did that. Thanks for keeping us alive, but we did that. There's the freaking part in Wade Walker, or whatever it is, at the very ending stuff, where it's like, be here now, be here now, be here now, dodge everything. And we just skip that now, and it's so good.
I want to see all of the prevented damage, all of the healing that would have had been done attributed to the DPS.
Okay.
We just saved all that time.
Yeah, we didn't have to worry about it.
I was gonna say, when you said if it's dead, it's not killing us. I think a really good example of that is actually in dungeons, when people do big pulls. So there is sort of a finite amount of time that the healer can keep that tank up, right? Like the tank, if they're a good tank, they're managing their cooldowns, it's fine. The healer's managing their MP, it's fine. But maybe not this expansion, but definitely the previous one. There's a finite amount of time before it's just like, well, I don't have anything left. And the thing that really keeps that particular strategy working is your DPS's ability to kill the crap out of that stuff quickly.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and people overlook that all the time. Where, you'll get in and people will be lambasting the tank because they're like, oh, you're pulling too big, you don't know your own limits. Or they're lambasting the healer, you're not healing me, I'm dying. But there's this whole other part of that equation, especially like earlier on as people are just learning their DPS and stuff like that, where when I'm in with parties or I'm doing mentor release, sometimes I'll have to say, we don't have the DPS for a large pull. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just like at this level, with the DPS we have, they may not have a full AoE kit. We may not, they may not be comfortable. We just cannot burn them at a fast enough pace that people aren't running out of all their cooldowns. And people forget that all the time, that it is really a group effort to do fast dungeon runs. It depends on all three different types doing what they need to do well to be able to do it smoothly.
Right.
Yep.
All right. That was a really fun discussion.
Right.
So if you had to pick a different DPS, what job would that be? Caster or physical?
Does it have to be in the game? Or can it be
in the game? An existing... Sorry.
Yeah, it's fine.
I was like, you really opened the floodgates there.
Throw wide the gates.
You cannot be a mystic illusionist, I'm sorry. Yet. Later, maybe.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think it'd probably be Dragoon.
Yeah?
I'm a real big fan of like the general Dragoon aesthetic. I also really love dragons.
Right, okay.
No, but I Dragoon's the only melee DPS. Like, I'm trying to branch out of caster because I already know that I'd really like to play Black Mage for a while at some point. But Dragoon is the only melee DPS that I've really dedicated a bunch of time to. It's my highest level one to like level 56. But I like that it's a little bit slower paced than the other melee DPS, so it gives me a lot more time to adjust. But I just think Dragoon is so fun to play, like having to weave in your jumps and still having to time your jumps so you're not getting locked into your jump animation.
Right.
Because if you're a split second off, that might be your death.
Yep.
So I think for me it'd probably be a Dragoon.
Anyone else?
I've got two answers.
Okay.
Samurai and Machinist.
Okay.
I'm completely averse to having any kind of raid utility. So
I didn't make that connection, but all right, okay.
I thought about it right after you said, and I said, I see.
I have always known that I cannot play monk. I can't do it because if I do, I will never switch back. I love the monk aesthetic in other games. I love the martial artist kind of feel. I love their rotation and how busy it is and how strict it is. I'm weird. I don't know why. It to me makes it feel better when you get those good numbers. It's like, man, that was difficult. And yeah, the boss was spinning all over the place and I still had to do it and I had to do these mechanics and whatever. But monk would be what I would play, definitely, without a doubt.
Yeah, I think I would, interestingly enough, probably go monk too. Aldianaux. I don't like it. Like I said. Here's the thing, though. I do like it in a sense. Like Monk and Ninja would probably be big for me because I already like my real DPS of choice. Like if I'm DPSing is Bard or Dancer. I love those two. They're so fun. I really enjoy them. But outside of that, yeah, Red Mage. So that leaves me with like the melee category. And I think I've always wanted to really be good at melee, even if in theory it's sometimes hard for me to get into it. And I have really enjoyed from leveling Monk the fact that it really is its own skill challenge. And I really appreciate that, even if I find it frustrating, even if it drives me crazy being on the boss all the time. Like, it is really interesting to see my perspectives on how to interact with the game and with enemies change so drastically, and all the positionals and all the ways that you're like negotiating playing this class. It feels so well realized. It feels like, yes, if I just nail these angles that I'm getting these punches in at, if I just do this thing, then like I will achieve so much. And I would love to see Monk, because it is more of a skill thing. I'd love to see its potencies be a little stronger than everybody. And right now, Sam, you know, there's some discussion with those two. But it is so fun, and it's complex in a way that I really appreciate. And Ninja's fun too because it has its own flair. So like for me, I would love to be able to really excel at those, but I don't know if personality-wise and like my natural playstyle-wise I ever will. So I mean, maybe I just need to give it more time and just get more accustomed to it. But
for me, it's Ninja and Machinist. I definitely haven't played Bard like at all. I got it to 80, and then I leveled up Dancer because I wanted to see how the job was, and then I was like, oh. Like I said earlier,
I like this
is me now. So yeah, but I do still consider myself a Dancer Bard main. So if I went to switch anything, it would be Machinist or Ninja. Red Mage? One of each.
Yeah, one of each.
I don't want to switch. Yeah. I really like my job, so. That said, what is everybody's least favorite part of DPSing and your least favorite job?
Butts. I hate butts in melee. I hate the butts in melee, and I don't like standing on them.
All right, good. Fine, wonderful. All melee? Specific melee?
All melee sucks, but also no. I'm kidding. Sorry.
Wow.
Oh no, it's just that's probably my least favorite part.
Yeah, just job.
Yeah. It's
like specific job, like samurai, ninja, dragoon.
I mean, it's probably samurai, monk, ninja, right? It's just that while it's a challenge and it's very different, and I appreciate that. Like I just said, on the exact same hand, I hate having to be right there on the boss.
Right.
And I find that to be the most infuriating because like for me as a bard, if I'm, you know, out in the field and something happens, I'm like, I'm just going to scoot. And I just go for it, and it's very fun and it's easy. Or if I'm doing caster, I think because I do healers, the spell sliding it's
fine.
Rating to me, you know? I'm like, here's my cast. I'm just going to scoot. And that's fine. But with melee, I feel like I'm just screaming all the time on the boss's butt. And it's the worst because, like, while you are doing it, you're also at the most mercy of everybody, right? Because, like, and I really appreciate this having played melee a little bit more now because I understand why they eat stuff and why they're trying to do, you know, like, I have to just stand here because otherwise my potencies are halved. And that was a big realization for me. But it is terrible when you're standing there and your tank doesn't realize that the entire boss's butt is a poison field and you're just standing in poison.
Or someone who's supposed to run an AoE out just like stands in your spine. You're like, well, I needed that space, but okay.
I know. And it's terrible. And you can mitigate it. But that's probably like the worst feeling for me in DPS. Feeling as though like, I'm doing my thing. Oh, my thing is in poison now.
Why?
Yeah. It's like just gently like, hey, can you move, spin something? What's up?
I think what I heard was your least favorite part about playing DPS is other people. Is that right? Like
hell is other people.
Person that's probably just you're like the poison on top of you, the tank that's not positioning right.
I don't know what you're talking about, Sharp. No.
is Rook. She loves people. She loves helping people.
Yeah.
I love people so much. And if those people sometimes make it so I can't punch good, I still love them just while I yell at them with my computer muted.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a reason push to talk exists.
Yes, there is a reason.
Complaining.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yep. I think I understand now why a lot of Melee players I know are maybe like a little bit saltier than most other players, which was really surprising to me because I thought healers would have it. I thought we would take it. But it is tough. And I actually do really appreciate Melee because I think it is difficult. And especially when you're trying to, do anything. I can't even comprehend taking it into like Savage or Ultimate stuff because for me, that would be the actual worst nightmare scenario. Because I like having a broader view of the field. So as a Melee, your focus is so limited and so narrow, and you are really it's a tight.
That's
kind
why
of focus.
even like guides you look at will be like the Melee get these spots. Everybody else get the heck out. You deal with the other mechanics outward. They get the spots in the middle to do their DPS while they're dealing with the annoying stuff in this big open space.
And I understand it now, and I will never argue again.
I will.
How about everybody else?
I'm sorry.
I'll argue constantly. Like for me, I don't know. Once again, I'm a caster now. I was Melee before in like every other game, but I'm like, yeah, you can have your nice spot while I'm out here doing all of the work. That's cool. It's a hot take. That's sometimes how I feel. I'm like, okay, so I got to do this, and this, and do as much. Okay, that's cool. I can, but
I can.
Yeah,
one would hope, but yeah, it's like, so yeah, I would say my least favorite part of DPSing is that negotiation with the group and who's going to do what, and like, cool, just I'm fine, I'll do it. That's okay. That's all right. You got your positionals. That's cool, even though you can ignore them sometimes. That's all right. That's good. Fine. Like my Swiftcast is basically stuck as raise. So like that's one thing that I can't do to move, like, so it's like, okay, I get it. You also never have to raise anyone. So like you're really just doing damage. So if you're not doing good damage,
why?
What's up? Yeah, what's up with that? Like that's just how I feel.
Do I get forgiven? Like, do you forgive the range DPS a little bit? Yes, they don't have to like worry about cast, but they.
Well, you do have to do the mechanics too.
Yes.
Yeah, you have to do all the.
And if there's a single mechanic, who's doing it?
Yeah, exactly. It's gonna be the range because they're typically a little bit lower. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I was just thinking the mobility, not even the damage exactly. But like I can still hit my buttons and move, and you can and not as well.
Yeah, but it's it's just that's what range DPS has always had to do. Like you've been bard or dancer the whole time, and you're gonna be doing those.
It's actually
two tethered,
decreased.
Yeah.
The amount of mechanics that range DPS have to do has decreased over time, which
it has
actually bums me out a little bit, but okay. So other people, least favorite DPS and least favorite part of DPSing.
All right.
I think my least favorite part of DPSing is having to push buttons that aren't DPS buttons.
Right. Yep.
So, when I was raiding in Stormblood, people would yell at me because I played a Black Mage. I've been playing Black Mage since I started like really seriously getting into the game in Alpha Scape. And they're like, why aren't you using Mana Shift? And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, listen,
I need this.
It's a hard clip. It's a hard clip. It makes my
I'm not doing that. Yeah, no.
Use your lucid dreaming and all of your other abilities that you have your MP back.
You'll be fine.
If you have to resify people, then I might Mana Shift you.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my least favorite part of it. That's why I kind of put myself out of a job with that sort of thing. Is which classes I want to play because they have the fewest buttons that are not DPS buttons. With that said, I do not envy the bards and the range range physical DPS because man, you have so much stuff on your plate. It's like
exactly.
This, Nature's Mini that, deal damage, stand here, run around the arena, spin in a circle twice.
Yeah.
And you have to maximize your DPS, right? All at the same time. And so I have a lot of respect for physical range DPS players.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
That's very kind of you, but they don't deserve it.
Wow. Wow.
We're little garbage
back.
boys.
Different
Never
strategy. Take it back.
I think my least favorite part of DPSing is, and this is, it's more, I fully accept that this is much more of a personal problem that I'm always actively trying to work on. But sometimes you get so into just, actually doing your job and doing your damage so that the thing is not doing damage to you in the end, that sometimes you kind of tunnel vision.
Sure,
And
yeah.
I definitely notice myself tunnel visioning a lot more when I'm DPSing rather than healing or tanking, because with healing or tanking, there's that inherent heightened awareness that you have to have in order to succeed at your job. And with DPS, I think that requirement in some senses is a little bit more lax, or we treat it subconsciously more lax. And so like I'll have executed like a mechanic or a wombo combo of mechanics super perfectly for a couple runs, and then I mess up one thing and I kind of get stuck in that funk for a little bit. And I'm like, oh my god, that was such a stupid mistake. Right. I'm so sorry. Why did I do that? I'm dumb. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And then I guess I don't really have a least favorite DPS, but if there were one or two that I just definitely would not ever want to play, probably Monk and Ninja. I think they're just a little bit too quick for how I personally like to play. Like as somebody who always casts, that I think probably I would never want to play Monk or Ninja.
You don't want to get carpal tunnel.
Yeah. Not to say that I, don't run the risk of that as a summoner, but
Yeah, I don't know that I have a least favorite DPS. Like one that I would play the least is Bard and Dancer, just because I want to feel the contribution of damage. And like support jobs are great and we need them. I won't go on my rant about we need more of them, but that's okay. That's okay. We need more of them. That's all right. But like that's never been my type of jam, and I don't want to do it. It's like what Sharp was saying. I want to do the damage. I want to have all the buttons that do the damage. Why I raise, I don't know. I should be a black mage, but
it's because you're a kind soul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
My least favorite's probably Samurai. I don't actually dislike the job, but I feel like it's too straightforward.
It's a little simplistic. Yeah. I mean, just to be honest, it's a little simplistic with some of its rotational and positioning stuff, which doesn't mean that you can't have a job that's more streamlined and satisfying.
Right.
But especially having played now both Sam and Monk, it's very interesting to me that like Monk I think is much more punishing as far as like positionals and execution and stuff goes. And Sam I think has a little more leeway, although it gets more complicated later on. But
it's nice to think that they've designed different jobs for different brained people. Like some people, that's going to be the job that clicks with the way that their brain functions, and some people are going to be like, I am asleep now.
Yeah. And some people who play Samurai would be like, no, it's not less complex, because I have to think about, and there's every job has those levels of complexity.
Everybody.
However, it's like skill cap and skill floor. It's slightly easier to be better, like at a baseline on some jobs. Like Red Mage, slightly easier to be acceptable. Samurai, slightly easier to be acceptable. Some of the other jobs, not so much, So that's just the way that it goes.
Cool. Let's see, where is our list at? Do you prefer DPS style jobs in all games or just in 14?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was a good answer. Next
That
question.
was a quick.
Yeah. I give taking a shot in World of Warcraft, and you know what happened? I turned it into a DPS job. I was like, okay, how can I optimize how much damage I'm doing?
Exactly.
So, and in Final Fantasy 14, that's exactly the same. I find myself falling into exactly that same kind of mentality where I'm putting. It's dangerous because I'm putting the benefit of the raid and actually paying attention to mechanics and pushing the right mitigation buttons at a lower priority than pushing all of my damage buttons.
Right.
I don't usually subject people to that sort of aspect
Right.
of myself. Sometimes I dabble in it, but yeah, I try to stick to what I naturally do.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your new favorite ability added in the expansion?
Oh, White Mage Lily is probably for me. At least
for a caster DPS.
Oh, dang it. Red Mage Lilies.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I don't know. You guys take this one.
Oh, sure.
I don't know what it's called, but the red mage ability that's the same as jumping backwards, but you don't move.
That was nice.
Right. Yeah. I can't remember the name of it either. Because it's disengaged that it replaced, but I don't remember what it's called.
Like some fights, just hitting that button where you flip backwards makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up. So I like the one where I could just go, I'm not sure, hit the button, I'm still safe, it's fine.
Yeah, I'm still doing my damage, yeah.
Yeah, that's engagement. That's the ability.
I mean, from just an aesthetic standpoint,
okay.
because I'm not super knowledgeable with the wide range of casters, I was just really happy to see Phoenix added for Summoner.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever, discussion goes around that, it was so cool to see another iconic creature get added to that Summoner roster that now, can play a part, and it's not just all about Bahamut. I really loved that. Just that was something that I got excited about when I was seeing all the new abilities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the fact that it plays differently from when you have Bahamut out.
Right.
They
There's
could
actually
have
a combo.
Yeah, they could have easily made it so that you pull out Phoenix, he gives you the little mini Medica too, and then you just continue on with your regular summoner thing. But no, they actually change your abilities so that they are Phoenix related, and I really liked that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me with Summoner, it's probably Ruin 4 now. The way that it works.
Oh,
now.
yeah.
Now
Oh,
it's
yeah.
good. Now
I
it's
can
good.
control it, and I don't I don't feel bad when I don't have these force proccing, because sometimes I wouldn't have one until maybe halfway through a fight, and I was like, oh, that's big feels bad, man.
Yeah, exactly. Where's my damage? But now it's another resource to manage, these stacks of them to make the best of any encounter. Like, do you know that, I need to bank these because a healer's going to be in a jail and I need to get them out faster because we need this right now? Or do I use it in the most optimal way? Or do I find some other use of it somewhere? Like, I really like the play around it. So.
Yeah. And yeah, going off of that, I think, aside from the obvious, I love loving Phoenix being added. I like that, I actually really like that our Eggy actions were just turned into Eggy Assault. Yeah. I like not having that full pet hotbar on the top of everything else to manage. It makes it a lot easier to map out my hotbars now. And like you said, yeah, I like that it leads into another resource you have to manage, your Ruin 4 procs. And especially with the changes to Eggy Assault and 518, don't get me wrong, for maybe the first couple hours I would hit Eggy Assault and I'd be like, oh right, I'm supposed to weave it now. Or not weave it. The other way around. I was like, right, I can't weave.
Yeah.
But it got a lot easier, and it feels so much better to play just under your fingers now.
Yeah.
Sharp, how about with Black Mage? It seems like Black Mage is one of the classes that didn't really have anything massively game-changing, but that could just be my opinion.
There's all kinds of ways we can go with Black Mage. So they added, they didn't add a whole lot. They didn't change a whole lot. I want to say Black Mage is probably one of the best balanced classes because you see how infrequently they change it. And right? And if they do need to adjust something, it's usually a very slight modification to one or two spells. So I could go with Despair, the single target flare with the giant explosion. I could go with, Xeneglassy, the single target foul with the giant explosion and a ton of potency. But you know what ability I was actually really excited to see that really changed the way I play Black Mage is Umbral Soul. And I think the Black Mage nerds out there are probably thinking to themselves, what the hell is he talking about? Umbral Soul is an ability before. Back in Stormblood, if a boss flew away and didn't have anything to cast a spell on, you would watch your Enochian timer just kind of count down to 0, and you had to use Transpose to save it and keep it rolling, right? If you lose Enochian as a Black Mage, you're you're back in ARR. You're kind of used to.
Yeah.
So Umbral Soul lets you just push a button and refresh Enochian, give you back more stacks of Umbral Ice. So during all those downtimes and bosses, I can hit the ground running. As soon as the boss is back, I'm like, boom, instantly I'm casting spells again. I'm ready to go. It's like winding up your Hot Wheels car and then letting it like hit the ground and off it runs. Right?
Yeah.
It totally changed the way that I treated downtime as a Black Mage, and I honestly think that was very exciting for me.
They did that for a couple of jobs too, like Monk especially. I think they added the thing that just stops grease ticking.
Yeah, for
You just chill there, and grease is like, I'm still here, it's fine. And then you can switch your form if like you're in a dungeon or something, and it'll change the form, but it'll keep grease going. And it's like they were like, oh, we've been real dicks to you guys. Sorry about that. Here's a big, nice, shiny Band-Aid.
It's such a huge quality of life improvement.
Right.
I have to say, yeah, that's great to see them.
All right. So those are the things that we liked. What are the things that we would like to see changed? One particular thing.
I want Bahamut to stop following me.
Yeah, please.
I would really like the option. I really don't know how they would build that in, but I'd like the option to maybe place my demi summons like we do with our eggies.
That'd be nice, I think, yeah.
I think that's the big thing that I still really wish for.
Yeah.
Sit still, stop wasting your white swings.
Yeah. What are you doing? Yeah.
I think I'd like to see Red Mage get a little bit more of an identity again, because it's tough, right? Red Mage is sort of the filler, in a sense, with the casters, and that it's supposed to, in theory, be able to do a little bit of everything and a little into the support. Where, I can heal a little bit if we need. Oh, I can do a res if we need.
Yeah,
but
embolden,
Yeah, but it feels like in Stormblood, I mean, people were bringing it into raids because you could just res back to back 100 times and have no effect on your mana, right? So it was a progression tool. But with them nerfing some of that going into Shadowbringers, I feel like even though it's not bad by any means, and absolutely, I mean, you can play it and you can take it in, you're going to do a little more potency and things now, it doesn't feel like it really has a place as like what it does. And even if they just, I don't know, gave it a little something. I mean, we're talking about mana replen. Like at this point, that has been stripped from pretty much every other class. So like, it might be interesting if they brought something like that back, but then is it going to become the absolute meta? I don't know. It's one of those things where I feel like it needs a little something that it does that makes it its own thing, as opposed to just like, well, there's a little utility in case you need it.
Right. Yeah. I agree with that for Red Mage. Like, it's like when it started, it was like, it's going to be the mobile caster. And in Shadowbringers, Summoner kind of ate its lunch and then beat it up in that order right in front of it. Because it's like, when do I have to stop moving? I mean, when Bahamut's being dumb. But like, that's, in downtime. But like, most of the time, I have so many movement ability, like not movement abilities, but abilities that I can use on the move. Like Eggy Assaults. Like, I can just be circle strafing around the boss and pressing those buttons and doing damage and getting Rune 4s to then circle strafe and keep pressing the button. Like, but Red Mage, it's not that much. You're slide casting, but you're locked behind that hard cast to get that instant. Then the hard cast to get the instant. And it's weirdly not as mobile. And it's really strange. I don't know how it happened, but it did.
So I could be like real selfish with Black Mage and say I'd like to see a 3 to 4% improvement in their DPS because they're not as mobile as summoners.
Yeah, it's true.
Therefore, they should have a higher DPS ceiling. But I 100% agree with where Rook is coming from here. I feel like Red Mages have been completely overshadowed.
Yeah.
They don't really fit into the game. Like, they used to be the prog mage, right?
Yeah.
But we just saw, like, Ultimate, the first Ultimate team was a Black Mage and a Summoner.
And Summoner, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so
Mind's
Mage doesn't do... Right? Yeah. They don't deal like high amounts of damage to like justify bringing them versus something else. I think I would also like to see Embolden affect magical DPS in addition to physical DPS.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
All the things that are like, here's a boost to your physical DPS, screw off, casters. What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
the ideal sort of thing would be to almost maybe make Red Mage the support caster,
Right.
judging like by the conversation.
Mhm.
And you make a good point about like if we gave them back mana shift, does that make them the meta? It probably would to some people.
Yes.
But I think in the end, I think people are still going to play the classes that they like, regardless of whether or not they give Red Mage back this big utility thing. Like it would definitely be a huge help. I think because I think we're all at some point every raid night we're feeling the loss of mana shift.
It definitely
Because I remember as a summoner I could just mana shift. I could mana shift on cooldown, and I wouldn't be at risk of running out of mana even now because I can just hit a lucid dreaming and I'll be fine. So yeah, I think if we gave back Red Mage some of the stuff that we lost from those support actions from Stormblood, I think it would be a step at least. I don't know whether it would be good or bad.
Maybe more too. If you like you were saying, if you put them on par with Dancer, Bard, and Machinist, you wouldn't have to take Dancer, Bard, or Machinist.
You could have a caster instead. Yeah. I like, we're talking, they've said, your job in particular, but honestly, Red Mage needs so much help right now that it doesn't even matter. Like there are things that I could say, but really, what am I complaining about?
Raising.
Yeah.
That has to stay.
I'm kidding.
That has to stay.
And it does kind of create this discussion because we've talked about this a little bit in previous weeks, right? But as we came into Shadowbringers, the loss of some of those synergies and certain things that were deemed to be, this debuff or this thing is going to be too powerful with X, Y, or Z. And then we see things like Astrologian, where did I cut out? Okay. Then you have things like Astrologian, where you have your cards, but now we have essentially condensed those down to just a straight up and down damage boost as opposed to having varied utility. And so like with Red Mage, I think it would be really, really neat if at some point they gave it some kind of unique utility. But again, it's easier for me to say as a player, like, give it something we haven't seen than it is to talk about the bigger picture. But it's like there's so many interesting support things, like you were talking about Aldianaux from 11 or from other sources where we've got debuffs, we have buffs, we have all these different things that you could do, or things like mana shifting or hasting, or like there's so many different things they could draw from. And of course it's always a balance issue, but I just would love to see Red Mage have something that is like iconically its own, because it right now just feels as though it has kind of lost and the identity it even had in Stormblood. Res Mage wasn't necessarily amazingly great.
It wasn't that great, but
that is something that it did. And they could just slap on, an across the board damage boost for it. But again, like then we're just getting to the point where it's like, okay, so I either do damage, I heal damage, I soak damage, or I just like boost damage, and that's it.
Right. As we were talking about that, I was just like, what? It would be amazing if there was one spell, and if you were higher in white mana, it was a buff, and if you were higher in black mana, it was a debuff, and that's it. Just one ability.
That would be so cool. You're a genius. That would be so cool.
I want that. I didn't think about it until right now. I want that.
It would be so good, because right now the game really the gauge really doesn't do much for Red Mage. The idea is just like, you need to fill it up and it needs to be mostly equal. And then you will expand it and you will make it mostly equal again. Like, it would be so, oh my God, that'd be so cool. I'm so excited about this right now. It'd be amazing if there were different, differences in your kit. If you were more black, like if you were leaning more towards the black end of the spectrum or the white end of the Aether. Like, that would be really neat. I'm very excited.
I don't know why I even said that, because that's not a thing. And now I want it to be a thing.
I know. You just upset yourself.
I know.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
All right, to make yourself feel better, what's your favorite piece of content?
Were you going to say Shark?
I would, if I one more point.
No,
on that subject.
Please.
What I would really like to see is like my ideal world for the ranged magical DPS would be if and I'm not entirely sure that like they need like a specific thing in their kit that is like, okay, this is the one thing that causes a caster to be differentiated from everything else.
Sure.
It'd be really nice if I could, as a player, just select the caster class that matched my playstyle the best. Right. So if it was like I liked doing dots and I liked controlling pets, therefore I'm going to play a summoner. I like having cast time spells if I'm going to play a black mage. I like having, an acrobatic presentation with, a bit more of, kind of a mixture of the two, then I'm going to play a red mage. But right now that's really not the case, so whatever we could do, I think, to kind of make it more like a preference for the player as we can deal damage, but how do we want to deal the damage? I think that should be the differentiator.
Right. And I agree, because for me, summoner dots are they're on. You don't really have any play around it. Like Fester, sure, okay, but like there's no real play around it.
Space there that
Yeah, you can't extend them anymore. With Garuda, like that sort of play around the dots, like that'd be great. I agree.
Okay. What is your favorite piece of content to DPS? Right?
It's gonna be weird.
8-man.
People are gonna be like, "What? Voidwalker? Literally Voidwalker."
Specifically Voidwalker.
Yeah.
Really?
It's so much fun. 100%. It's so much fun to be like, yeah, this is the hard one, right? This is the hard one, right? Everyone's like, "Oh man, we got to move around." And I'm like, no, this is where I really focus, and I do exactly it, and I get hit by none of those stupid things. And like when I'm done with it and I get a run like that, I'm like, yep, I'm good. This is great. I love it. It's so engaging and fun. Like you can't look away at any given time.
Yeah.
Like it's just so much. Like every other fight, I mean, there's some downtime. There's like, oh, we'll stack here and wait for flares, so we got some time, but it's still like engaging all the way through. I don't know.
Yeah, Voidwalker I think was my favorite part of the raid to Prague. Going into Titan last night though.
Yeah.
Wow, it's so fun.
Yeah.
There's so much going on, but it's just so fun. We were having such a good time last night.
Right.
Even though there were like lots of failures getting getting through phase 1, and like we're still trying to tidy it up. But it's just so fun for the same reason that Voidwalker was. You really have to engage and be aware of what you're doing. And it's a really enjoyable time. And I also like, for me personally, I like that I'm finally reaching and getting to Prague the end of a raid tier.
Right.
I haven't been able to make it that far before until now.
Nice.
I'm so excited for you to get that clear. Please tell us when you do, because that's going to be awesome.
Oh, I'm fully planning on making like a highlights. I have to do like I'm going to have to like get the kill clip of it too. I'm super excited.
The nerd screams, yes.
Yeah.
I think I probably like doing like expert level dungeons, if that makes sense. I think if we had some kind of savage dungeon content, I would be super into DPSing that.
Give us Mythic Plus.
I know.
4-hour dungeons.
I
want it.
Like I have always earlier in the cast when was it Zen or was it Aldianaux? One of you was saying who really likes dungeons, and I was like,
no,
yeah.
Because I love the dungeons. I love the designs, the music, the bosses, the story, the fights. I love that you're in this smaller unit, so it really feels like, especially when you're at like level break for them, right? It really feels like you are this tight-knit band that is having to contribute to this, right? And if any one person isn't contributing in a harder difficulty dungeon, right, then that is a major detriment to your group. And I like that. Like, I like having this tight-knit group that has to work together. And so for me, it's really fun to do dungeons on a DPS because you get a little bit of everything. I get to use a lot of my AoE stuff on like the mobs in between. I get to, mess around or try to see what I can do to optimize that so we can burn them. I can, go in and do a boss, and that boss has mechanics, and I can just sort of figure that out. And I think like if they did some sort of content where, we were doing like a 4-man savage dungeon, I would be so about that. Like I would love it because doing dungeons on my bard and dancer in particular, but on all classes, just because it really gives you a showcase of what you can do. And it really matters, that contribution that you bring to the table. So
it was me.
I never thought about that.
I will amend my earlier. There's
Who
like
even likes dungeons?
There's the space at the beginning when it's new and it's fresh and it's fun and you're just learning it and it's fun. And then there's like, I've done this 20 times this week. I'm over it. And then there's like a big old span of time, and then you go back and you do that dungeon a year later and you're like, oh yeah, I remember this. So that time in the middle, who does dungeons? But on either end, I'll give you that.
I mean, like, you know, that my work is very busy, and there's times where I'm like, oh man, I need the cap. And then I know I've heard it like in the, you know, our static Discord and things like that. People are like, oh man, you know, like you're gonna have to do this and this. And I'm like, I'll just run experts like all day long. I don't really care because it's fun. Like, that's fine. I don't even need the bonus. It's okay. I'll just run it for a couple hours. And...
I don't want to do that.
I'm like, I'm not doing the other roulettes. I know they give me extra, but I don't want to do that. I'll just do this expert over and over again.
No.
So, on my end, I've got there's actually 3 answers to this, but I'll try to keep it brief.
Yeah.
I was gonna say Voidwalker, but it seems like we're all on in agreement.
It's
on
fun.
That.
Yeah.
And the reason for me actually is not so much of the like the mechanics and the activity of the fight, which is actually really well paced. It's the fact that it's the only fight in the Savage Raid tier that you have 100% boss uptime.
Yeah,
There's
that's true.
There's no
That's
intermissions.
true.
The boss is targetable. You can always lean into the boss. So it's a really good metric to measure your damage, right?
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that yet.
Well, that makes me feel good.
Yeah. No, it's the second answer is Hades EX. And it's odd to go from a fight that has a like no downtime to a fight that has like half of it is downtime. But the reason I say that is because we were talking about abilities being paced properly and raid design. Hades EX, when I'm playing as a black mage, you can see that it's really obvious that they had that in mind. So they're like, for instance, if I'm a black mage and I have to kite the explosions towards the end of phase 2 or phase 3, I lose track. You know what's always up right then? Triple cast, and it comes up the second you have to.
Ooh,
nice.
It's exactly timed with it, and
that's
cool. To see. Yeah, it's fantastic.
That's
the
awesome.
only fight I've noticed that doesn't follow that formula is the last fight of the first Yarha 24-man. If I there's a point in the fight where my big dance comes up and I start that thing and then they're like, time to dodge dives, bitch. And I'm like, no! There's not even ads right now. Why?
Right.
Yep.
Oh man.
And the last thing is a real quick note. I've been jumping into some of the solo content in Heaven on High lately. That is, if you haven't had a chance to do that as a DPS, it is intense.
Oh yeah.
Right. Yeah, I haven't tried it. Like I was doing it on Red Mage for a while, just because I was like, oh, this is the fun that I'm going to have with this class. You know, like that's what I would like to do. But oh man, a lot of things where things die quickly is just suffering for Summoner. I hate it I'm like, and Bahamut's, why would I press that button right now? Why would I even bring him out here? He's just going to be hugging me, you know, as I walk to the next group. So
that's why he's emotional support Bahamut.
Exactly. Yeah.
A hug.
Yeah, just I'm gonna put that in the macro somewhere so I can just hug him.
Did everybody get their favorite content in?
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
Most difficult content to DPS. Give it a thought.
Yeah.
Definitely 24-mans. Any content that has more than 8 to 10 people, to be completely honest, if only just because there's just so much going on.
It's just chaos.
It's absolute chaos, and sometimes my brain can't process it all. So I'm like, wait, what just happened? And then the next second I'm dead.
Yeah, who killed me? Why did you stand on me? What are you doing?
Yeah, why would you do that? Like, why would you keep... And that's, like, the other thing, too. Like, I think it just becomes, like, the most frustrating because it's the most unpredictable, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just that, like, sometimes you don't have time to sit in the entire length of an instance to finish content. So, Yeah, I think definitely like a 24-man, or back to Eureka even.
Oh boy.
Oh yeah.
Off my ley lines.
Yeah. Get out of here.
That's a good point, because while, I mean, obviously Savage or Ultimate content is probably going to be the most technically difficult,
Yeah, technically.
When it comes down to it, it is sort of interesting, because I think that Sharp, just like you were pointing out, I mean, and X Primals too, kind of in there, right? And just like we were sort of discussing, a lot of those fights are very specifically tailored to an understanding of the classes, their pacing, their rotations, the fact that you're going to have a smaller party size. So once you learn what you are doing, and Aldianaux, you were mentioning this earlier, you know exactly where to go when, you know exactly where you are in the fight, you know exactly what buttons you're pushing. So in a sense, once you get over that initial learning hurdle, they are just a dance that you learn to execute, right? Whereas the 24-mans do really, I think, overturn most of that regular pace from 4 to 8-man content that we normally see, to where things don't line up super well, because there are a lot of you in the party, and maybe there's a lot of mechanics that will just wipe half of the party. And then there's a whole bunch, because there are more people, so there's more people who can compensate and res and heal and stuff like that, where I don't always find that I can really get into my flow in the same way when I'm DPSing there as I can even in a more controlled environment like a raid, which might be more technically difficult, so that kind of content does really shake it up and goofs it up. I'd also throw in there PvP for me, because I am bad at it with DPS. I'm actually pretty decent at it when I'm playing like a healer, but that's because I think it's more familiar to me. But the pressure that's on you in a PvP setting when you're DPSing, right, where it is all about these like swift dives, where you making a snap decision, that person is the weakest, that is the target, I am going to get them, this person is priority, I will get them. And it kind of has this level of confidence with DPSing and with the PvP skill set, where you have to just be able to make it's like these quick snap decisions to cause the most impact. And sure, you can just get in there and goof around it, it's probably not going to matter that much, but a really good DPS player in PvP always stands out to me. If they're on the opposite team, probably because I'm dead always, 100% of the time, anytime they show up. If they're on my team, it's because I can see the way that the moment they throw themselves into combat, and if I'm supporting them as a healer, like, they will break enemy ranks. And it's so cool to see happen. And it's so beyond me as a DPS player that it's interesting to see in that different setting how it affects it.
I'm going to agree with PvP. And almost for the same reasons. Like, as a healer, I feel like I have a safety net. If somebody's beating up on me, I can be like, go away, I'm okay, run away. And then as a DPS, I'm like, if I don't kill you first, I am dead, and that's all you get, right? There's no safety net there. There's nothing to keep you from face ground except another player. And actually in a 24-man, I think I'm 100% more comfortable because there's still a formula there, even if a majority of the people inside that formula don't know how to follow it. I still can. There's still something there to just be like, okay, now I do this step. Now I do this step. In PvP, there is no formula.
Right.
Your buttons aren't even the same. You basically are learning a different thing entirely, and also you need to be aggressive and go kill that person before they kill you. And that's not how that's not really the content that I like either. I enjoy doing the dance and following the formula and avoiding the stuff that I know is going to be there versus the, oh god, suddenly Dragoon,
I mean, it's a bummer to me a little bit, because I'm not a big PvPer, and it takes kind of a special setting or game to really get me into PvP or really interested in it. But that's usually just because I find the environment to be more hostile, if that makes sense. There's just a lot more salt. People are just way more up on their high horses. You go in and it's fun for what it is, but everybody's losing their minds. And that is really stressful for me as opposed to some other kind of content. But in the games that I have really gotten into PvP in, for the very reason that you can find it kind of frustrating, Zen, I think that's why PvP combines. Because people have endless variations of activity And the way that they respond is always
endless variations of what?
They have endless variations of creativity. People do.
Yeah.
Where it's never like listening to a robot play a song. It's like listening to a jazz musician improvise, right? And it sounds really poetic, but it is magical in a way when you see like PvP matchups where you just don't know what's going to happen. Because even if you know most of the common strategies, most of the ways that people counter, most of the ability sets and rotations, who you need to look out for, there's always going to be this one moment that other content won't have, which is that moment when you're staring another player in the eye and you're both waiting for that next move to happen, even if it's just a hair's breadth of a second. And it's cool, but it's so, unless you have that authority, that knowledge, that skill base, it's very difficult to get into. And because PvP it's not big in 14, so we don't see that level of matchups unless you're in like a niche group of competitive play, which is kind of a bummer. I wish we could see more of it, and people, I don't know how they'd get it more run in the community.
You're not wrong. I think if I and maybe anybody else with the same opinion were to spend the time to actually learn how to react to certain things in certain situations and become comfortable with having to deal with somebody, suddenly that's my face. I could probably enjoy the content, but it takes time. And in our current environment, it's not always fun because of that level of hostility you mentioned.
Yep.
Yeah. There's always been that animosity, like in MMOs between PvPers and raiders, PvP, PvE. And part of that, one of the things that PvPers say about raiders is, yes, always the same every time.
It's
like,
true.
You're going to go fight a robot.
Well, it's not
what I do is so different. I mean, yes, you know what I mean? They're like, oh, it's just this sequence of scripted events that you can get a flow to. You can know where you are.
That is a point, though.
Most of the time. And for PvP, it's much more, it's situational awareness. It's, you talk about Dota and League, and it's like knowing the map and knowing, exactly what that character can do versus you, or versus, like the person that you're supporting, like it's just so dynamic. And yeah, I've never really even cared to try. Like, I'm like, whatever. I really do like raiding more.
Someone in chat's outing you over there, Sharp. Been rising through the ranks this season.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. So speaking of PvP, and I was gonna bring that up in my feedback about where what's hardest to DPS in, but it seems like everybody's of the same opinion. Specifically, Feast PvP was where I was having some trouble.
Oh yeah.
The challenge for me, I spent the whole month of December basically. So Rook mentioned that we took some time off from raiding to celebrate the holidays, and the way I spent that is I really dived headlong into Frontlines and Feast PvP when the season came out. So I was playing my Black Mage. We touched on this. It's a totally different set of abilities, right? So it's like you're learning a whole new class.
Yeah.
It's like it's exercising muscles that I haven't used in forever. Right? I'm used to playing a Black Mage in the context of a structured boss fight, right? I can do that in my sleep. But when I'm sitting there and it's an unstructured PvP where I have to respond to what's going on and constantly monitor the game state to know what my next move should be, that's not something that Black Mage is really excel in.
Right.
So, absolutely. It's like, okay, I'm waiting for, I don't know who's going to be on my team. I have to, as soon as the team is formed, understand who's going to be the shot caller. If nobody's stepping up to the shot caller, then that's me. I have to be the shot caller, right? So it's like a bit of leadership, and it's a bit of trying to dynamically understand with the rest of the team, like what page they're on, who we're DPSing at that point in time, how to let people know. This is a big roadblock, I think, for a lot of the things in PvP. One of the challenges that I have in that is you can't actually talk to each other. You can't type to one another. You only have like pre-packaged messages that you can send to your party.
That was the worst Band-Aid ever.
Yeah.
Because you used to be able to talk.
Yeah, exactly.
And they took it away because people were mean.
Well, there was a lot of mean.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
No worries. So we were saying you used to be able to just type out, but they took it away because people were mean.
Yeah.
So, it's the worst Band-Aid ever. What were they thinking?
I don't know.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess you could. Well, but that's the issue, though, right? Because if you go into a match or one of these ranked matches, you can't even type to your party, join me in Discord if you want, because you literally cannot type to one another. So how in the world, like, that is baffling to me unless you have a team, but they've even put restrictions on certain team sizes and things like that. But like, unless you have a team where we're all together, we're all coordinated, we're going into these matches together. I mean, when you look at things like Overwatch, which I played really aggressively and competitively for a couple years, people are going to be garbage on the comms, but at the very least, you have a chance of being able to communicate a strategy to your teammates. But not even having a system in 14 where, as far as I know, you could like set a target and then it would flash on the screen like, we are attacking target A, or we are, that's got to be so hard, and especially those ranked seasons.
Yeah,
I wish they. Go ahead.
I was gonna say to the point about like preventing toxicity, taking away limiting the amount of communication that you have just makes people that want to be toxic have to be more creative about being toxic.
Yeah.
Like they've created a whole language in the symbols that you can use to communicate the toxicity.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't get rid of the problem. It just changes the way that they do it.
Yeah. I wish they hadn't taken that away, and I wish they didn't have restrictions on queuing up with friends, because while I get why they're doing it so that people who aren't in teams can compete, if you really want to compete, also join a team.
Yeah.
Part of the fun of PvP is creating a team, going in with people who have got your back, and that takes away a level of that thing that I was talking about. You don't have a safety net. If you go in with people have your back, there's that safety net.
Yeah, plus, I mean, it's not like they would ever, like, let's just look at this in a broader way, right? It's not like they would ever disable your ability to speak in a raid. Yeah. Like, if you were in a raid
like
and you queue in off of, like, a 24-man or, I mean, gosh, even, like, Savage raids,
even
right?
Savage,
Like, you pug a Savage raid and you go in and it's like, you're all very rude and stinky, so you can't use the chat anymore. They would never do that, because in order to play at the level you need to play at, communication is a fundamental skill alongside your rotations that has to be able to be executed. And I think if they really do want to have a competitive or functional PvP scene, sure, maybe in some of the casual modes you limit the group sizes or you disable the chat. But for certain things, you're just going to have to bite the bullet and be like, this is a team mode. So you should be on a team or you will be at a disadvantage. I don't know what to tell you. That is just how it works, because the fun of this is combining strategies and working against another team, unless it is just a 1v1 mode, you know? Like, if it's a team play mode that has any kind of team play element, you have to be able to work as a team. Otherwise,
no talk, just murder.
Yeah. It's just
no talk, just murder.
No talk, just murder. Like, it's very weird that was the solution and that we've never seen that changed. You know?
Did we get to the most difficult content for you?
Yeah, I think so.
Me?
No, Sharp.
I think. Oh, Sharp. Yeah.
Oh, I just was echoing the.
Okay. Just making sure.
Agreement with Feast.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
We got to it.
So, last question, guys. What overall job of the bunch, of all of them, do you think, from your perception as a caster DPS, or whatever you happen to be, is the most difficult?
And this is any job,
Yep.
Wait, caster, just caster?
No, any job.
All job.
From your perception as a caster DPS, or whatever you happen to be, since we're not, what role / job is the most difficult?
Yeah.
As I've said in the past 3 of these, healer. I think healer is the most difficult.
Yeah.
Healer.
100%.
Oh yeah, 100%. You know why? At least, so this is the way I came to that conclusion. For DPS, my responsibility is to deal damage, right? So I can move that number up as far as I can. It's really easy for me to see what my contribution is. But that's really my job: deal damage. Tanks, their job is to deal damage, mitigate damage, and like tank the boss, right? So they've got the DPS job, optimization of damage, plus an additional layer on top of that, which is, you know, deal with the mechanics of the boss. Healers have like DPS, heal, do mechanics, you know, buff, debuff, whatever it is. They
make up for other people's mistakes.
Layers.
Yeah.
Res. Manage your mana. I feel like they've got so many layers of responsibility that I have to say for me that's absolutely the most difficult role to play.
Yeah, it's tough because this is such a subjective question.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, like everybody's always going to have things that are harder, easier. So like within each of the different categories, there are probably classes I would say this one is harder than the others in some sense, right? Like in the tanks for me, Dark Knight is probably one of the harder ones, but mostly because its kit is just very different from the other tanks. And getting a handle on that, especially because the game hasn't always like accommodated exactly what Dark Knight style is, you know, like that's tough. In healers, Astrologian would have in Stormblood probably been my pick for this is the hardest because who Dogie, you had like 50 cards, you were playing this mini game, you were dealing out a poker game in the middle of all of this nonsense while things were on fire, like, you know, and that's why I loved Astrologian. Now I feel like they're a little more equal, although Astrologian may have a little bit more that it, you know, has to accommodate or do, especially to get damage and things like that in as well. And then with casters and DPS, I mean, I think Monk is probably one of the more difficult just because of all of the moving you are constantly doing and then maintaining all your stacks and doing all the other stuff, right? And things like Bard and Dancer. Dancer has a million procs in those burst windows. So if you're not a very quick person, that's going to be tough. But when it comes to like bigger categories, I think Ultimate has really shown me that, yeah, I think healing is particularly difficult. And I wouldn't have said that before Sharp and I went into Ultimate. And now that we're doing Ultimate, it's funny because that first phase of Alexander, I feel so bad for the DPS because you guys are like babysitting dolls and you're like moving stuff. And I'm like, oh, all I have to do is heal. That'll be easy. And then as we started getting into the bigger picture of the fight, I was like, they are going to make me use every single ability that I have down to the last piece of mana that I have, down to the last possible proc that I could ever use to try to help somebody not die. Like, and that was really fun for me to see heals taken to that degree.
Right.
So now I'd say maybe, healer, but if you are naturally a healer, then it's not going to be the hardest to you if you are good at that skill set. So it's tough. I think it changes for everybody. Yeah. But it is interesting seeing what everyone has to handle or multitask in their respective roles.
It's also a team sport, right?
Yeah, because there's two of you. Yeah. And you have to play with that second healer. You have to, you know, you have to be in concert. You know, like it's. I agree that healer is the hardest, and you know, like even before 14, like the game that I played the most and I was the most active in raiding, like WildStar, you couldn't pay me to be a healer in WildStar. Like you have to aim your heals in WildStar. Are you out of your mind?
What?
Like no. Yeah, there was not really tab targeting or healing in that way. Like there were some healing spells like that, but you had to follow people around. Like one class just had cones of healing. And it was just like, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how we even have healers. I don't know what's wrong with you. Like, holy crap. Like, that's insane. You know, I didn't do it then, but just in 14, definitely healers, especially in the harder content. You know, it's just, I can't dispute it. I don't do it. It's not something that comes naturally to me, like you were saying. So, nope, definitely.
Yeah, I think taking into account all the things that healers do, I think that I pretty much agree. I think personally for me, what's probably the most difficult is tanking, actually, just because it makes me nervous.
Sure, yeah.
Tanking makes me super nervous. And then if I had to pick a specific job, that is, for me, this is like a personal rating again, but I think most difficult would be Scholar. Just having played Summoner for so long, it's such a weird adjustment.
Right.
There was one time, I'm so, you know, because you know you concurrently level Scholar and Summoner as you go. So once you get one to max, the other one's at max. So once I got my Summoner to 80, I swapped back over to Scholar to actually start going from 30 and on, because I hadn't touched it ever before.
Yeah.
And this is going to be super embarrassing to say, but as a non-scholar main, I don't care. I forgot that Physic existed, so I used Lustrate, and I was like, how am I supposed to heal once I've run out of Aetherflow stacks? What do I do? And then I looked on my bar again. I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
Oh my god, it's Physic!
Yeah, because as a summoner, you look at Physic and go, nah. Like,
I look at it and I'm like, this is useless.
Yeah, what is this here for?
The frustration, frustration.
Yeah.
That's adorable.
Yeah.
We've all had a moment like that. Don't be embarrassed.
Yes. Oh yes. Everybody has had.
Oh, you're fine.
You know, if you're new to an MMO or to a job, it's like, what does this even do?
Yeah.
Yeah, there have been some just embarrassingly shameful times. And I think when you stream or you're a content creator too, even more so, because sometimes you pick up something new and you're like, I know stuff about this game. And then somebody's like, why haven't you been using your fundamental skill that the entire class is built around? And you're like, is that on my hotbar? That's on. And you're like,
Yeah.
What?
You learn really
heals on my hotbar for a long time.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think that covers it. Anybody else have anything they want to mention about cast or DPS?
No, not really.
It's your what?
Yeah.
We need more black mages.
I'm not sure how many people can handle the intensity that is the black mage.
Yeah,
It's true.
It's interesting to me the way that casters are right now, you know. Barring red mage, I'm sorry to throw them out of this, but I am, because we've talked about there's the difficulty. There's like 2 levels of difficulty. Like people are like, summoner is so difficult. And yeah, okay, because of this and that, and because of the buttons, because of, you know, trying to wrap your head around how it works. And then there's black mage because of positioning and knowing exactly how long you have to do this. But they're both, to me, kind of similar. Like I can't really say, and I don't play black mage in hard content, so it might be different to you, but I'm like, it's just amazing to me that the 2 casters there are so, I don't know, balanced in some way, at least in that, like, it's difficult to master. They're both difficult to master, and I love that. I love that we have the 2.
Yes.
Wish that we had 3, and we'll get there, but I love that we have the 2. You know, it's just, I don't know how they did it. I have no idea.
You can definitely tell the difference between, I think, a summoner and a black mage that really are comfortable with the class and understand the class. And gosh, even like going back into Stormblood, when summoners had like a 20-page opener, like if this was in Stormblood, summoner would have probably been top of my list for hardest casters. But they test different things, right? I mean, with summoner, you're multitasking and doing all these things and setting all this stuff up and you know, working through these rotations. And I can't believe, like, to me, watching a very good black mage is honestly one of my favorite things to watch in all of Final Fantasy XIV. Like when I'm watching Sharp, I'm like, this is the coolest thing, because it does show, like, it is really a knowledge-based class. And it shows that, like, you don't always have to have a million procs and 1,000 buttons and a million things. But you can test this difficulty of, I will know this fight so well, down to every second, down to every beat, down to every place that I will put myself, that it will be a completely different experience playing this class and getting very good at it than it will be playing any other class in this fight. And it's really neat to see. So yes, black mages, please come out, learn, watch amazing people like Sharp who play black mage. And, you know, I mean, it's so amazing to see that knowledge. And when you run with somebody who knows those fights, you're like, oh, okay, now
I didn't know
you
could stand there. Right, exactly.
It is fun to watch to any job. Just pull a little thing you didn't expect. Like sometimes you watch a ninja do a little shikuchi.
Yeah,
you're
like, look at that cheeky.
That was slick. Right?
Yeah. The Dragoons who elusive jump backwards to do things. I'm like, yep, there you go. That's what I want to see.
Yes. Anytime somebody backflips with just insane precision, I'm like, sign me up. I'm not even, give me the stick.
Yeah.
I want to learn.
All right. So the last thing I want to say is I'm glad we ended up doing this one after the summoner changes. Because I feel like the section that was like, what do you want to change about your DPS job would have been very long.
That would have been the rest of the episode.
Yeah, I would have just been ranting, definitely. Like we've been talking, kind of around other jobs, and we've been doing these, and every once in a while I'll be like, I can't say these things about Summoner, and everyone's like, no, go ahead. And I'm like, you don't understand. I do not want to rant for 30 minutes. Like, let's just keep going. Let's just keep going.
All right. Yep. Thank you to the two of you so much for joining us. Yes. It was wonderful to meet you and hang out and discuss casters. If you guys want to give people where they can reach you really quickly.
Sure. So I stream on Twitch Tuesday through Saturday starting at 7:30 p.m. Pacific. Usually play Black Mage on my stream, but I dabble in other classes like Gunbreaker and Scholar. Mm-hmm. And if you have any questions about getting started with a Black Mage or any other ranged magic.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I stream, so I personally stream on Friday or Saturday or on my channel. It's mainly raid night, so you get to hear us screaming about things a lot. If it's not raid night, I stream a variety of other games. Mm-hmm. I'll probably be doing Fire Emblem at some point soon. But if you ever want to come by and just talk about music and video game soundtracks, especially for teens, yeah.
May I ask real quick, what did you play in marching band? I heard marching band.
When I was in marching band, I was actually in the percussion section.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I played xylophone, so
I was also in marching bands.
Yeah,
were you? What did you talked about this before, Aldianaux?
No, I don't think so.
How do we not know this? I flute and piccolo, so I was the annoying one.
Yeah, I was in the pit. I played marimba and xylophone.
Yeah, I was also in pit.
That's funny.
Also, really fast, Sharp and Rina, because when you were giving your little spiels, just because this crossed my mind, would you mind giving your Twitch actual addresses here?
Sure, it's twitch.tv/sharplydressedman.
Okay.
And twitch.tv/dreadwormsong.
There we go. And we'll also include those links to them in the, the description on Gamerscape. Yeah. So if you're listening to this on iTunes, you probably won't have it there. Go visit Gamerscape and you can get those as well.
Yep.
It's time for the outro for us.
Yes.
If you want, you can email us at aetheryteradio@gamerscape.com or tweet at us at aetheryteradio. You can also find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Discord at Gamerscape. Regular old Gamerscape. Mm-hmm. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining us, both our guests and our chat members. It's good to be back after many a week. Yep. We should be back next week. We don't know what we're going to talk about yet, but we'll figure it out.
We'll find something.
We got a big
marching band for 3 hours. It's fine.
Marching band. Come back. We'll talk about music. It'll be great. Yeah. Thanks so much, everybody. See you next time. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.